Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have returning guest, Artemaeus, and I just forgot to go live. We're going live now on the radio if you're just tuning in. But we got Artemaeus returning to the show. We had him on, a month or two ago. And tonight we're also going to have Artemaeus' wife, Tillie. Artemaeus and Tillie Treadwell are going to join us tonight. She is a psychic medium. We haven't had her on the show yet. So we're going to have them on tonight. I think we'll go down a lot of different topics with these guys. They've had a lot of different, their own. Both have had a lot of experiences. Artemaeus, we had a lot to talk about last time he was on. And I'm sure we will with Tillie. And we will take your phone calls later in the show if you want to call in and join this conversation. And, of course, lots of weird to get to. You know, the world, I said last Sunday was on fire. It really, truly is in L.A., right? All kinds of craziness. And, of course, I got that craziness in the World Wide Web of Weird, as always. And, yeah, no show. Just to let you right now, in case you don't listen to the end, I should do these updates at the beginning. No show next Sunday. It is Father's Day. So I will be spending that with my family. Tuesday's my birthday. You want to wish me a happy birthday? You will see me on Tuesday. I'll be strumming out to my new guitar, Midlife Crisis guitar. But I'm glad to be here this Sunday with you guys. We got great guest tonight, so let's go ahead and get rolling into the show. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight's guests, Artemaeus and Tillie, will join us after the World Wide Web of Weird after our first commercial break. I do think I have them in the waiting room, but I think they're setting up and all that. Sometimes I have them join us for the World Wide Web of Weird. I don't know if they're ready. Do you want to join us for the World Wide Web of Weird, Artemaeus? No, he ain't ready. You won't get in on this anyways, trust me. Joining me as always, though, is my beautiful co-host, Jamie D. How are you tonight, Jamie?
Doing well, and I want to be the first one to wish you a happy early birthday.
Thank you. Yes, I had a, like I said, midlife crisis and bought an acoustic guitar. In my defense, remember I've had all this flooding in the basement? Both the acoustics I had were destroyed years ago, and I've not had a new one. And I've been itching for it, and so midlife crisis tonight. Amazon, thank you. Jeff Bezos, you evil Bond bastard. I bought a guitar from you tonight for my midlife crisis. But hey, you know, turning 46. That's what I got to do. I got to buy a guitar. Is that what you do? I don't know. But hey, you know what? Next study, like I said, is Father's Day. I'm not gonna do a show because I'm gonna spend it with my sons, probably gaming. You might see me live streaming doing games with my son that night, but for Father's Day, I'm gonna be spending it with them. So no show. We'll take a break, but we got other guests lined up, coming. But you know what? We got a lot of weird to get to tonight. So let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, I thought I'd just get this right out of the way. How many of you have seen the red sun or freaking out about Planet X or Nibiru coming? It's the end of the times. We've seen the red sun. It actually kind of haunts me. I had a weird, strange dream when I was a child about a red glowing sun in the sky and the end of the world. Yeah, so when I actually saw a red sun in Indiana, like in 2017, that looked like the ones everybody's been posting around lately, it kind of freaked me out. But I don't think it's Nibiru. For those listening on the Paranormal Soup radio network, we are a webcast streaming out live to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. But if you want to listen, I will narrate best as possible. And we got Rob here. Hey, Rob. All right. So you want to run the World Wide Web Weird loop up for me? Where we got? Oh, right here. Got it. Awesome. Thank you. All right, so here's the video I first saw of this. Go ahead and play this. I don't remember there's music in this. There's audio.
The moon is above us.
Here we go.
I know. That's there. That's there.
That's
And that's not the sun. That can't be the sun because the sunset is over there.
That's a planet.
The sunset is over there.
Mommy, that's a planet.
And the moon is up here.
Do you think she's confused about where the sunset is?
The moon is above us.
That's what wildfire smoke.
This is the first video.
California every year.
Yeah, well, this is like the first video, and it's all through, like, I think, what was that? I'm trying to remember where that was filmed at, but it's all through, like, New York to Florida.
Canada's having
in Canada
wildfires
because of the Canada wildfires. They had it in 2017 in Indiana. I saw one time we had the sun that looked just like that. It scared the crap out of me because
I have hundreds of these pictures.
I just remember when I was a little kid. When you ever have a dream that like sticks with you? When I was a little kid, I had this dream about this glowing red ball is the sun. Like the sun just turned orange like that. It was like the end of the world or something, and it stuck with me all these years. And so when I saw that. In Indiana, and like I think it was 2017. We had like some kind of fires or something that went through that caused that. Look at
what's going around at the same time. It doesn't matter what's making it red. It's the fact that it's a red sun.
You mean like it's a sign?
Yeah, like if you're going to look at it that way.
Well, like I said, I had the red sun here in Indiana in 2017, I believe it was. I mean, I don't know. It does look freaky in that video, but it's also bad, probably video footage.
Bright pink, blood orange.
And then I've seen people putting these together in all these videos showing like
the
stuff from the
double pane glass. People stop with the double pane glass and the double crescent moons.
I mean, could there be a Nibiru out there? I'm a believer. I love Zachary Stitchin, man. I got a whole classic collection of Zachary Stitchin 12 Planet books I got this year, but I don't think this is it. I don't think the 12 Planet's here, guys. No. Sorry. All right, moving on, though. I've always been told, too, that the end of the galaxy would come one day, that it would collide with Andromeda. Well, I guess new studies, that's just a graphic showing the effect from the smoke and the sun there. I don't think we have to give them a scientific explanation. But yes, the Milky Way might not collide with Andromeda galaxy after all. It was going to be a collision 4 billion years in the making, a meeting of two galaxies that would likely mean the end of our solar system, at least as we know it, and probably the end of Earth as well. I think Earth would be long gone by 4 billion years, but hey. Now, however, serious doubts have been cast over whether this actually is likely to happen at all. We see external galaxies often colliding and merging with other galaxies, sometimes producing the equivalent of cosmic fireworks when gas driven to the center of the merger remnant feeds a central black hole, emitting enormous amounts of radiation before irreversibly falling into the hole. Until now, we thought this was the fate that awaited the Milky Way galaxy. We now know that this is a very good chance that we may avoid this scary destiny. The prediction is based on a new study that involved 100,000 computer simulations using data from NASA's Hubble telescope and European Space Agency's Gaia Space Telescope. Findings indicate that the chance of a collision is as little as 2%. Again, nobody's going to be around to prove either one of those theories right. I'll take the bet on the 2%. They're saying 2% odds that would happen. But we won't know. You can make that bet, but nobody's going to be around 4 billion years to know. But nobody was around during the Big Bang, and they're still talking and arguing about that because the next one, Article 3. New paper suggests that the Big Bang wasn't the beginning after all. The end is the beginning is the end. Sorry. Yes, Enrique Gazatanga, I probably butchered that. The Big Bang is often described as the explosion of birth of the universe, a singular moment of space, time, and matter sprang into existence. But what if that's not the beginning at all? What if our universe emerged from something else, something more familiar and radical at the same time? Basically, I'm not going to read this whole article. We're basically on the inside of a black hole or something like that. But no Big Bang. It's more like this, like the bubble universe on those lines. Yeah, I'm totally dumbing it all down. But again, nobody can go back to the beginning of the universe to really prove it. But there is a provable hypothesis in this theory that they think they can prove their theory of the beginning of the universe, or actually no real beginning or end, right? I don't know. As they speculate and, at the same time don't believe aliens are here right now. I don't know. Let's move on. Well, they believe aliens are not here right now. Let's move to some footage from Toronto. Group of friends in Toronto could not believe their eyes when they spotted a triangular UFO hovering in the night sky over the city. The interesting sighting, which was filmed by one of the bewildered witnesses, reportedly occurred on May 22nd. In the footage, a woman wielding her cell phone turns it towards a trio of lights overhead and marvels, "Don't freak out, you guys, but there's a UFO hovering over Toronto." Her observations echoed by her friends, who notes it's just hovering there and hasn't moved an inch. As the footage concludes with the group feigning fear over possible alien invasion with little resolution as to what the weird triangular object could have been. To that end, some viewers suggest that the UFO could have been otherworldly or possibly a clandestine craft, likely the TR-3B spy plane. Go ahead and play it. And it's hidden under belly 2.0 is the original channel. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty foggy out there. You can see the lights as they go up there, but when you get a closer zoom in, I think he does of it, you'll see it's 3 triangular lights. Should do a closer zoom in of it. I just did this off a screenshot of this, but Hidden Underbelly 2.0 has got the original footage. Should do a zoom in of it, I thought. Thought I did, I might have forgot. Or I uploaded the wrong video. This is the right video, I just uploaded the wrong edit, I think. But then again, like I said, they're still arguing over the beginning and end of the universe. They can't prove, but, well, we don't know if aliens are here. I mean, what is it hovering over Toronto, 3 lights like that? Is it a military craft? Should it be in there right over Toronto? I mean, I don't know. But we got more. On to orbs. Next one. We got an odd silver orb that is cruising across the Utah sky. Interesting video filmed earlier this week in Utah shows an odd silver orb cruising silently through the sky to the bewilderment of a father and son who noticed a peculiar object overhead. The unusual sighting reportedly occurred on Wednesday afternoon in the city of Nephi. According to the witness, my 7-year-old suddenly pointed to the sky and said, "Dad, why is there a star in the middle of the day?" When the man looked, he later marveled. Sure enough, there was something strange up there. What specifically captured the pair's attention was a shiny silver orb that moved through the sky at a fairly steady speed. Recognizing the weirdness of what they were seeing, the dad briefly captured the footage and the UFO with his cell phone. Let's see, are you on the next one? Yeah, we'll go ahead and play this one. This might be really hard to see, too. I forgot to do the zoom in edits of this here. This is from Coast to Coast AM. You can get this. But, you know, they got the whole silver ball thing going on with the sphere thing, whatever they say is alien. They keep talking about down in, what is it, Colombia or somewhere. But people do see these things. This was like a silver ball. I know you guys probably can't see it too well. Yeah. I forgot to do the zoom in. I'm sorry.
Plus, that phenomenon has been around for like a long time.
Well,
people have seen.
Yeah, what's the Betts family sphere? Is that the one in Florida, Rob? Yeah, that one from the 70s is one of the most famous ones I know of. But it's something that always interests me about the spheres.
Yeah.
You know, who was it that called? And one of my callers talks in about the biblical reference to that. You know, there's something interesting. It's always, you know, orbs, the glowing lights, the spheres. Like, what are these? Are they craft? Are they interdimensional? Are they probes? You know, I don't know.
Surrounding the sightings of these.
Yeah, I mean, and look at the like, you know, the wooden carvings in like Germany from the like, what, 1400s, 1500s. They show the balls and pillars shooting at each other in the sky. You know, stuff like that. What are the balls? You know, what are the orbs? And you see them in, you know, paintings and stuff just as much as you see these shapes of UFOs. Which you do see, like the total, you know, silver, you know, disc shapes in the, you know, in paintings.
They have them.
You know,
They draw them everywhere.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, I think they've been around a long time. I don't know. It's hard to see on here. I'm sorry, guys. I totally missed the zoom in on these. I was busy this week. I'm sorry. Happy Ghostbusters Day or Gremlin Day, whichever you prefer. Is it Ghostbusters? The Ghostbusters have a day and Gremlins Day? Is it the day they released? It's 40th anniversary is the other day of Goonies. I'm wearing the Goonies shirt. I don't know. She said Happy Ghostbusters Day, Heather. But I'm wearing the Goonies shirt because they had the 40-year anniversary. Yeah, I was 6 years old.
Oh, I love Goonies.
Yeah, that's our favorite movie. All right, we'll go on to number 6 here. Man, I really flew through these articles faster than I meant to. I didn't have a lot for the World Wide Web actually this week.
It is Ghostbuster Day.
It is. I didn't even know they had a day.
I am so late. I didn't put up a Happy Ghostbuster Day meme today.
You didn't get your Ghostbusters Day Hallmark card? Holy crap, what's that sound? What was that?
I think Rob dropped his mic.
Yeah, it fell over.
As long as you're with us, my friend.
Who are you going to call?
Right? Not the Ghostbusters for that.
Autry.
What I wish I had here was an audio clip is like, who brought all these beep snakes on a beeping plane? Samuel L. Jackson for this next one. I don't have that clip.
For you.
Just for me, because, you know, as I say, I'm flying. My wife really does have the fear of it. She's gotten over it so much. She did fly finally. I don't much have a fear of it as long as I don't see a UFO out the window, deal with a crazy person on the plane, or see a man standing on the window and nobody believes me when I tell them there's a man outside on the wing, or somebody brings snakes on the plane.
That would be horrible if you actually seen a dude on the wing and everybody's like telling you you're nuts and you legit see somebody on the wing.
Holding a bag of snakes as you're flying over the water in a UFO.
Yeah. Shut up.
The snakes, no, I'm fine if the snakes are outside on the wing of the plane because they're going to fly away. Bye, snakes. No, it's when they're in the mother beeping plane, as Samuel L. Jackson said. Well, this next article, airport authorities discover 47 live vipers inside man's luggage.
Why?
Of course, it wasn't here.
But, you know, I wouldn't even do that.
According to reports, custom officials at the airport in Mumbai, India, intercepted a suspicious man. I wonder how suspicious he was looking. Like, was he beady-eyed? Was he looking around? Is he holding the bag? Like, shh, quiet to the snakes. You know, you got to be pretty suspicious holding 47 vipers. A suspicious man returning from Thailand on Sunday. Upon inspecting his luggage, poor guy who had to do that, they were stunned to find that he was attempting to smuggle 52. It was 52. I thought it was 47. 52 live reptiles into the country. Among the illicit cargo, 3 were. So we got more than snakes too, by the way. Among the little illicit cargo are 3 spider-tailed. No, that is all snakes. Spider-tailed horned vipers, 5 Asian leaf turtles. Oh, there's turtles, okay, and a staggering 44 Indonesian pit vipers, all protected species and illegal import without proper permits. Hence why he was smuggling them. Man, you're giving me some mic noises here. Right.
Sorry.
The shocking discovery echoes similar incidents from February when officials at the same import found 5 Siamang gibbons, I don't know if I said that right, stuffed inside a passenger's trolley bag. Just a few months earlier in November, 2 travelers were also arrested for trying to sneak 12 exotic turtles from Bangkok. Animal smuggling through airports remains a serious ongoing issue, with traffickers resorting to increasingly bizarre and sophisticated methods to evade detection. At least it isn't like the damn lady who killed and drowned her dog because they couldn't let her take her dog with. You know, she didn't try to even smuggle the dog. But 47 vipers, what is wrong with you? I mean,
But this is very good money.
Yeah. It could have been, don't assume it's just an Indian guy because it was in India, Is it that much money, Rob, per viper?
Oh, a couple $100 a piece.
Well, then, yeah, $4,700. That's worth it, right?
Yeah, well, is it? I don't know.
I got a snake, man.
Got a snake, man.
I got 47 snakes, man. And some turtles.
Is that
Was that all in like one bag? Like, I mean, and even like the picture, some generic, picture they threw in there, but it kills me. From the BBC here. And like, why? I don't know. I know, Rob, you love snakes, but why?
I love snakes.
I love snakes, but I wouldn't treat them like that.
No, because I love snakes. Is why.
What happens when you put 47 vipers into one bag?
And out of the 47 of them, maybe 10 of them poop in the bag.
Oh, well, yeah.
So, maybe not.
He probably doesn't have to deal with that. He just hands the bag. Give me cash.
Yeah.
Here's your vipers. I made it somehow. Like, do they ever really make it through? I mean, they must.
Not all
somehow.
of them.
Yeah, but yeah.
So how many times you ride on a plane and there's some guy there with a bag and the luggage department's got 47 vipers sitting in it? Yeah. That's a thought to carry with you. Another reason why, just to add fear to me, idea of flying. I don't want to do. But hey, soon you have to get over the fear of flying to, around the country and get over the fear of flying to places like Mars, because that's our last article for the night, and this could open up a lot of different discussion. Elon Musk plans sending humans to Mars overly ambitious would be a major understatement. He plans to send 1,000 starships every year. We've known for a while that Musk, officially the world's richest man, has long had his heart set on not only sending humans to Mars, but building a permanent settlement there. This is all very well and good for a vision for the relatively distant future, but Musk seems to be under the impression that he can achieve it all within the next few years. At SpaceX event on Thursday, Musk explained that he would be sending Starship, the firm's flagship space vehicle, to Mars as early as next year with Optimus robots as passengers. So far, Starship has been plagued by issues and has exploded numerous times during its testing. While SpaceX will no doubt iron out these issues, sending one to Mars as soon as seems unlikely. But Musk's ambitions don't stop there. A mere 2 years after this, he hopes to begin sending humans to Mars to begin colonizing the planet. Eventually, he argues that SpaceX facilities in Texas will be building 1,000 starships a year to help ferry people to Mars in their millions, forming an entire off-world civilization. How many people are you actually going to get to go?
It's like Noah's Ark, and he's bringing up, it's just a spaceship, and he's bringing up vials of our DNA. He's going to make humanoids. And then they're going to fly down every.
All these guys, their penis rockets are Bond villains.
What is it? It's either the guy we don't want to name his name, or the other guy we don't want to name his name has that.
Those who shall not be named.
Century time capsules in this mountain that will open every century and will show like what happened in one of the decades, and all the humanoids will fly down from space.
They're either building super bunkers or penis rockets to get off this planet.
Come on now.
And Musk wants to set up his own little utopian society there, I think.
Yeah.
With brain
We
implants.
can't even get to the moon. How in the hell are we going to get to Mars?
And it's not like he's doing great and standing with our government at the moment, which is going to have their help. And I don't see it, Elon. I just don't think it's going to happen, man.
And the other dude sent up a few people back up in the space flight, supposedly, the other day. Like 8 people or something.
Which rich billionaire with the penis rocket?
The one that faked the Katy Perry one.
Oh, Bezos with the bald head.
Yeah.
He totally another classic Bond villain there. I mean, seriously, they all resemble Bond villain plot lines. You know,
really
like,
are.
Oh my god, like Musk is Moonraker.
Every single one of them.
Or more like, and Bezos is Austin Powers, Dr. Evil. You know, they're like, $1 million. I want dolphins with laser beams on their head. You know, I mean, I don't see how we're going to be sending 1,000 spaceships a year to Mars in what is he saying here, in like 3 or 4 years?
We were supposed to be on Mars by like last year. Wasn't it 2024 was when the Mars mission was supposed to be?
Yeah, well, I thought we were going to the moon. No, I thought that was it. We're supposed
But
to
I
go to the
thought
moon.
he wanted
We're
to
not
go
doing
to
that.
Mars by 2024.
I don't think he even wants to go to the moon.
No.
China's going to the moon. China's hitting it. They're going to hit it because it's all about mining, baby.
To it, yeah.
Helium, helium-3. You know, they're going to be mining that energy.
I'll believe it when I see it.
I'm with China on this one. I think it's stupid to try to go to Mars, send 1,000 ships there when we can't even get anything operational going on the moon. I know. I understand the moon has no atmosphere whatsoever, and it's probably a lot harsher environment.
Out of it.
But it's a lot closer. It's a lot closer, and there's a lot more we could get out of it energy-wise. And we're going to be fighting over it strategically, too. You got to think about it strategically. What you could put weapons-wise on the moon would be extremely scary.
There's already
that's what scares me.
Crazy things that they're talking about that it's insane.
All right. Well, that's it for the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight's guest, Artemaeus and Tillie Treadwell, will be joining us after this commercial break. We're going to join them. Artemaeus was on here about, a couple months, or a month ago or 2 months ago? I can't remember. It's how long it's been. Not too long ago. But now we're going to have his wife, Tillie, with us as well. And she is a psychic and medium. We're going to get her life experiences and talk about their experiences when we come back from the short commercial break. And later in the show, we will open up the phone lines for you guys to join this conversation. All right, guys, we'll be right back.
You were brought here for one purpose, necromancy.
A ceremony dating back to the pre-Christian era. It's the art of reviving the dead. It requires involvement with evil spirits by the person performing the act.
The devil god brings life to the dead.
No, please. No, please.
And death to the living. Necromancy. Starring Orson Welles and Pamela Franklin. From Cinerama releasing. In color, rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, Join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Hello, I am Fernando Martinez. I think by now you know I am an emotional kind of guy. People stop me in the street and say, Fernando, what the hell is wrong with me? Silk shirt, hairy chest, enough aftershave to drown a household pet, but I still cannot get a woman. I tell them you are an ignorant fool. Without a symbol of power and fertility around your neck, what kind of woman is going to respect you? That is why I have teamed up with Medallion Man, the shop for medallion needs. Medallion Man caters to all levels of masculinity. For the strong, silent type, a medallion the size of a hubcap will say everything that needs to be said. Even singing medallions for the Casanova, who knows music is the food of love. Model trains, dollhouses, diapers, whatever your interest, we've got the medallion for you. Don't forget, every woman knows if you can't support a medallion, you can't support a family.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Switch to DCS range ring.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe, 5 by 5.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guests are Artemaeus and Tillie Treadwell. Now, like I said, it wasn't that long ago we had Artemaeus on, and we learned about his paranormal experiences that really started when he met his future wife to be Tillie Treadwell, who is a psychic and medium. Let me tell you a little bit about Tillie, since you got to know Artemaeus a little bit last time he was on his show. This will be Tillie's first time. Tillie is an American author and experiencer. Her very earliest memories include what seem to be paranormal encounters, and the other sides has always played a central role in her life. She was a co-lead of an exorcist and investigative team with the Catholic Church, has worked as an independent tarot interpreter, healer, medium, and advisor, and today is an author for Zontar Press, a publishing house run by Tim Swartz of the Ancient Aliens. She also writes for the Outer Limits magazine and the Quad Coalition of Sciences. Notably, later this year, a piece of hers will appear in the new book of Malcolm Robinson's SPI in the UK. She's currently hard at work on several other books, inclusions in some standalone volumes with Zontar Press. When not writing, she can be found embracing creative hobbies and assisting specialists with the discovery and implementation of a new novel treatment for porphyria, a rare genetic condition that renders a person unable to bear exposure to sunlight. Wow. Which she was born. She was born with it. Wow. Artemaeus and Tillie have proudly made featured ghost and partner status 2025 full disclosure now conference and are in consideration for speaking at 2026 event. There's a lot here in this bio. We're gonna talk to these guys here tonight. She's got a long bio, he does, but man, last time we had Artemaeus on, we ran out of time of all the different conversations we're going to have. Now we got them both. We got Artemaeus and Tillie, And I want you guys to join this conversation later in the show when we open up the phone lines. But let's go ahead and get to our guest. All right, let me pull them on up here. How we doing tonight?
Hey, good to be back.
Getting some echo.
Yeah.
A major echo.
Let me try to fix that.
Do you have a play in the background?
Yes.
Okay. Mute him for a second until he fixes that. All right. Nope. Not yet.
All right, is that any better?
Testing. I don't hear it. I think we're
Can
good.
you hear me?
I hear you. You hear me?
It's faint, but that's just because I'm trying to fix this on the fly. I'm not very technologically savvy.
It's all right, Artemaeus. You'll get it figured out.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
I hear you in the background.
I'm not showing up. Oh, I'm back.
Oh, is she in here? Oh, I'm sorry, Tillie. I didn't see. He put you in the theme below.
Oh, there she is.
There's, okay. I didn't see that it put you on below there. I think this has been a long time since we've had 5 people in the panel. So I wasn't used to it putting somebody down below. Welcome, Tillie. So you sound good. Artemaeus, we don't have the echo anymore. I'm really faint, you said. You able to hear me, though?
Yeah, I can still hear, but as long as you can hear me, then we should be good.
Okay, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you just fine. Welcome, Tillie. Thank you for joining us here for the first time. Artemaeus, thank you for coming back on the show. I wasn't sure what we wanted to get into tonight. I know I talked a lot last time about Artemaeus' experiences with meeting you, Tillie. So we'd like to learn a little bit about you. I hate to put you on the spot, but I'd like to learn about you. How did obviously you've had a strange and unusual life, and I don't know where you want to begin or how you want to tell people about yourself.
Sure. Well, I myself am strange and unusual for all of the Beetlejuice fans out there. For me, activity started when I was in the baby carrier, it seemed, and it simply escalated and persisted from there. The earliest encounter that I had, I seem to remember being taken up out of my body for a little bit, and I seemed to meet someone, and she thanked me for coming here to help and asked how she could help. And then I was terrified. I was a little tiny baby. So she deposited me back into my physical form and I cried myself to sleep. And that was my first encounter. But I do better, honestly, with direct questions. So if you guys could provide some structure in that way, my autistic little mind would be deeply grateful.
Okay. Getting echo again, I don't know, or it's coming from you, I think, on your end, because it might be picking up his speakers from the other room, maybe. That's what I think I heard, because I'm not hearing it from anything else.
Well, we are right in the same room, just a few feet apart. We've never done this before.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I change?
No, I think we'd be. I don't hear it now. I think Artemaeus turned it down a little bit. I think that's what it was. So I think we're.
Yeah, I did turn it down, so hopefully that helped.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Sorry, Artemaeus. Okay. Yeah, it's just it can work. We've done it before. It's been a while. So that you were a baby when you had this experience. So you were like early, like so you're one of the people I have like really early memories from childhood, too. Obviously.
Yeah, it does seem that way. The next biggest experience I remember was meeting what seemed to be a little, I suppose you could say, fairy critter. I think, did you talk about this last time, Artemaeus, Bo?
No, I did not.
Okay. I swear you did. Bo?
Sure. It sounds familiar,
okay.
Like a little bit about talking about you and your experience with fairies.
Yeah, I was outside playing when I was around like 4 years old or so. And there was a little critter that appeared to me in the tall grass in my backyard. And he looked a lot like, you could say, a little wolf. But he had, at the time, little bat wings, and he had eyes kind of like a cat or goat, and he had a butterfly tongue, and he was chirping, but in my mind, I was able to hear him talking to me in English. And he was asking me what I was doing, and well, I'm talking to the flowers, of course, things like that. And he wound up asking me if he could come inside to watch our family. And me, I was incredibly innocent at that time. Yeah, of course. Just make sure that you be good, so that way they'll want you to stay. And he wound up living in the closets and under the bed for many years, and he'd be behind the furniture. And when I would tell my parents about him, I called him Bo, because a lot of non-human people that I've met don't care about names nearly as much as they do labels and other types of language. Because for people with no or very little ego, a name is nothing but a personal identifier. So when I met him, he said I could call him whatever I wanted, and I named him Bo. I don't know why at the time. I had no reference for that type of name, but I did. He came inside with me that day, and he made himself at home in the front closet in my bedroom. And my mom would hear chittering from the closet, and she would think that a bird had gotten in the house, which, I mean, I think that's perfectly reasonable. And there were lots of coats. There were lots of little places to hide in there. And I told her, no, don't. That's my friend lives in there. And my family thought that I was making it up. Children, they can have active imagination, so I don't hold this against them. They thought I was making it up. So my mom pulled apart the closet a few different times at a few different houses. Yeah. And she found absolutely nothing. She'd pull apart the closets, take out all the coats, all the shoe boxes, everything, trying to find this bird. And when she would start to pull it out, the chittering would continue, and I could see him. He was like flitting from corner to corner, trying to evade her attempts to catch him, even though she couldn't perceive him except for the chittering.
Right. So that's what I was going to say. She, no matter what, though, she wouldn't be able to see him.
Correct.
Right?
She could not see him. She said a few times that she thought that she saw something out of the corner of her eye in the closets or under the bed, but it was the chittering that she could hear.
It's kind of freaky.
And so she would go to take everything out of the closets. I would watch, and I was like, he's right there. He's right there. And the chittering then would stop. He would seem to dive into a coat and absorb into the coat and just be gone. Yeah. But then she'd put everything back, and then shortly after, the chittering would resume. It would be the same exact chirping noises. And it got to the point with this that my mom and my close family members were really freaked out about it. And my mom, unfortunately, over years, started trying to gaslight me about it, saying one day she would acknowledge, like, yeah, it happened. It freaks me out. I don't want to talk about it. And then the next day, or if other people were present, she would deny it, and then
in front of others, right? But in private, right? I want to say, I want to note really quick, Artemaeus, just so you know, I have you muted right now because it was making the echo. So when you're ready to talk, see, I can still hear you. I can still hear you from her mic. So when you're ready to talk, I'll unmute you. Sorry, Artemaeus. Just the
Sorry
sound.
about all of that.
No, it happens. I've done it before, but that is super interesting because, like, so you're obviously having these experiences at a young age and totally open up. You have early memories. Like I like to share my experiences. Still, like for me, I had early memories, like stuff before I could talk. Nothing as crazy as you, like having little friends. The craziest thing I saw was with my cousin. We actually both saw it was a green floating head at 5 years old that came into the room floating above us. And the weird thing is I could hear it crying until wailing, and he never could hear anything. He just saw it, which was weird. I wonder. I always wonder if it was because he, in that part of the family, he's that side, he's more the German in that, but my father's side is a lot of Irish Cherokee. And I thought, well, maybe I heard it because of my heritage, or I still don't know what it was, but it's these interesting experiences. For me, when I was a kid, when I saw that just convinced me anything was possible, and I never forgot it. I to me, that was a reality. I saw that. I didn't ever write it off as a dream. My cousin did. For you, obviously, did you ever so you're having these childhood experiences, did you have a time in your life where you kind of wrote it off as childhood fantasies, or for you it's just always been open, that door, and you've always never closed? You've always known?
Well, I always like to give the disclaimer to myself and to everyone else that I don't ultimately know the truth. I always have that humility deep at my heart. Yeah. And so I always advise people and myself that I could be a grifter, I could be a liar, I could be making it all up, I could have mental issues that are undiagnosed. It is what it is. No one really...
Tillie, nobody's a judge of you here. We're here to talk about our experiences. Nobody's here to judge you on that. Trust me. I know that feeling, though. But screw what anybody else thinks. We're here. I believe you. I believe wouldn't waste your time being here to talk about things that didn't happen. I believe you that these things happen. And I've had, I said, I had an experience nothing as, as seen something like you did, but I know what I saw. A green floating head's no different than you seen a small figure like this, in much detail description you gave too.
Sure.
That you really remembered, I can tell this experience with this, what you said, fairy creature. You said, now you were how old when this started?
I was right around 4. I was no older than 5. Yeah.
And how long did it last?
Bo has stuck with me almost my entire life.
Oh, okay.
But it seems location dependent. For example, when I lived up north, and we can get into locations and genetics and dimensions too, because in my understanding and experience, there's a lot of overlap between that.
Yeah.
But he was able to come through a lot more when I lived up north. And I believe, from what he told me and from what other non-human people have told me, that it has to do with climate, especially things like sunlight and thunderstorms, and then also what type of rocks and bodies of water are in the area. So he stuck with me for many, many years when I lived in certain areas up north, and then I had one experience with him here in Florida, but Florida doesn't seem to be really good for him, so he's not been around much, and I want to go back up north more because I miss him, to be honest.
That's very interesting that he's location, that he's able to manifest more, do more in different locations like that. It's very interesting. I mean, it explains, you talk about northern climates, probably a lot more, the fairy experience generally, as I know from my Irish background, is very much prevalent in Irish mythology and lore, and that kind of weather is darker clouds, more weather.
Exactly.
It's not as Florida weather. So is the sun does that too much sunlight for them? Is that affects them basically?
Yes. So the way that I understand sunlight is that it is the most destructive and physical force on this plane. And that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It also cleanses and sanitizes. And that's how people used to do their laundry back in the day, before bleach. But it also breaks down tissues, and it breaks down vibrations, is what I'm told. And I believe it. I mean, people unlike me who don't have porphyria, they still get things like skin cancer from too much sunlight. And so there is sunblock. But then there are also people like me. I have porphyria, and my porphyria is actually the rarest type in modern.
It's rare as it is. I mean,
Exactly.
the condition's rare as it is. And when I read that in your bio, I was like, all I can think of is one of my favorite movies is The Others. if you've ever seen that.
Yeah. Yes. That I think is such an underrated movie. Oh my
that's
gosh,
one
I
of my
loved
favorite
that. Mm-hmm.
Well, I bet you relate then. I bet you relate to that. Very hardcore.
Yeah, but so for me, it destroys my body, it destroys my tissues, and I'm apparently extremely delicate in comparison to like you guys and whatnot. So why wouldn't it then quite possibly completely hinder or alter at minimum the way that other non-human types of people can come visit us here? That's my understanding anyway, but what do you think?
My imaginative mind, I've actually tried to write stories. One of my story ideas of the afterlife was that one of the reasons like spirits become trapped in a location is that during the day that they're almost like vampires. They can't move during the day because of the power, the electromagnetic power of the sun beating down on their location could interfere with their spectral form or whatever. You got to think about it. It's a lot. If we're somehow in the electromagnetic sphere, our spirit or soul has something to do with that. Well, the sun would be a major impact on that every time its rays are beating down.
Exactly, and that's too why I believe a lot of the fae of a few different layers of dimensions can be found in the forests because the forests are shaded from the sun.
Right, that would make
and
sense.
Yeah, and you don't meet or see many reports of the human population meeting fairies in the sunlight.
Right. Well, yeah, and it's usually about people getting drawn into the forest and the mythology and folklore of it, like, that is their abode. And then think about all the deforestation that's happened across the world. How's that affected that, that population of fae and anything that lives in this realm that's affected, like you said, by sunlight.
Yeah. I think that people with a lot of ego content do many things to unfortunately drive a further wedge between the different branches of family, but that's just my opinion. I'm sad to see the forests being destroyed the way that they are, and I hope that other alternatives can be found and happily utilized over time,
Yeah, I mean, as human populations expand and, we expand out, into new areas, that it's kind of the way of human civilization is, but hopefully we keep these protected areas. And I think there are some places that people recognize as special, not because of just the forest and the natural life, that there's something spiritual there. And it could be because of these kind of entities that are roam around there. And I think the Native Americans understood this concept, and I think that's what happens with these like psychokinetic activities in certain homes that are built in places that they disturb maybe something like that. Sorry, Jamie, what were you going to say?
In Japan, if you've got anxiety and things, they don't give you pills. They prescribe you go out and spend some time in the forest.
As long as it's not the suicide forest. Don't tell them to go there. Sorry, bad joke. I'm sorry. That was a bad joke.
It's a good reference, though. I'm surprised that you know about that.
Oh, come on. Oh, yeah, I know about that. Sadly.
Did you guys get to talk about the time when Artemaeus and I lived right next to a state forest? No.
I'm unmuting Artemaeus if it let me. There we go. You're unmuted, Artemaeus. I want you in this conversation too, buddy. I'm sorry.
He has, I think, a really cool Glimmer Man story to tell you, because we've had Glimmer Man experiences in our own home when we lived next to the state forest.
You there, Artemaeus? It seems like it's frozen. I think it's frozen. Let's see. That looks frozen. He looks frozen. There he is.
There you go, I'm back. Sorry about that. Yeah, you might have to mute Tillie's mic. I think after we go to our commercial break, I'm going to switch over to just being on her tablet so that we're together and we don't have this feedback
Let's do
issue.
that, definitely. Yeah. Well, the problem is I'm hearing her in your background. So, Tillie, turn down your volume so I can hear Artemaeus.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. Cool. All right. So, yeah. So,
Glimmerman.
we lived right on the edge of a state park here in Central Florida, And there was a couple of experiences, actually. Tillie's got one that I call Frogman that you might want to hear about. Kind of creepy, and I'm honestly glad that I never I never encountered this one. But
Anything reptile is creepy
was,
to me.
A relatively brief encounter, but still somewhat unsettling. And it was nighttime, you know, as we've been talking here, that tends to be the time when the phenomena happens. And it was a relatively, you know, dimly lit bedroom that I'm in. And I notice floating up in the top corner of this room what looks sort of to be like that. Oh, yeah, here's a great example. In the Predator movie, that cloaking device that he's wearing, so that you can just kind of see like this. It's see-through, but you can see the ripple almost of, you know, it interrupting reality, basically the outline of this individual. And that is quite literally what I saw. It was just this roughly humanoid shape literally floating up there in the corner of the room. And, you know, I'm just sitting there staring at it, and it's staring at me, I assume, because it's just the shape of it. You know, I'm not seeing eyes, I'm not seeing any, you know, other details within it, just this, you know, shimmering sort of outline that was reminded me of that cloaking device. And slowly, over a period of, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds or so, I'm kind of frozen to the spot. Like, what do I do? You know, it just kind of, you know, faded away. So to me, it seems like an interdimensional type experience, but I hadn't ever really come across that sort of cloaking, you know, invincibility sort of device. Still haven't seen anything since, but in that particular house, living so close to the state park, we did have, you know, a couple of encounters that were, you know, a little sketch, you know, like you kind of get that feeling where like, I don't really like the way this, you know, is going. It seems a little creepy. I'm not sure the intention the vibe that I'm getting from this is sort of like, you know, one wrong move, sucker, and this could go south real fast kind of thing. Like,
and now
you know,
your story and like missing
was not all that
411.
interested, and so I kind of noped out of that situation.
Yeah, but that's how you end up in a story of like missing 411 in these national parks. That's what it seems like, you know, is that they have something there, you know, that, you know, people blame Bigfoot, aliens, but, you know, if these interdimensional kind of things like what you saw are there, you know, what's happening? What are they, might be, their involvement in this? Tillie, were you raising your hand to talk? Yes. Okay. Tillie's unmuted.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to say that I agree with you, and all of my experiences, for the most part, have to do with what or who I would say are more domestic non-human people. So jinn, they're right on the border, but then some of the fae, and then demons, angels, and maybe even some shapeshifters that are physically living in our society here.
Oh, I think he just turned up his volume.
I don't do a lot of work with the peoples who live out far in the forest because they tend to, from what I've learned from my few encounters that I've had with them, they have a completely different, wilder psychology that has a little bit more in common, you could say, with people who have higher ego content, and that's not something that I'm interested in. Hey, honey, why don't you go grab a chair and come join me real quick? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because we still got some time, but we still have like 30 minutes before commercial break, so just have them come in here.
Yeah. We're so sorry about that,
No,
guys.
it's fine. It happens. It's been a while since I've had a lot of husband and wife teams on here, and sometimes they're together. Sometimes we'll get separate video channels, and it works. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't.
We have such a nice setup here. Yeah, we have such a nice setup here that we wanted to utilize, each of us having our nice own backdrop. Come over on my other side, please. And unfortunately, it's just not going to work having the devices in the same room.
No, that's that audio feedback that you did.
But we appreciate your understanding.
Oh, I do. Trust me. Ain't my first rodeo on this front at all.
Okay. Ready, sugar? That's better.
All right.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So the glimmering man he saw, Now, you said you saw a frogman. Like, I don't have too much against frogs, but I don't like reptiles. Like, so the reptile, like, you know, draconians, all that stuff, anything snake, reptile related, I wouldn't want to see frogman. But what did you see?
Well, I stepped outside one night to just gaze at stars. I'm big on stargazing and planetary viewing and whatnot. And this was around, I want to say, 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. And we had a back patio door that slid. It was complete glass and it slid. And you just step outside. About 50 feet away, there was some foliage and a nice big retention pond. And right there at the shore of the pond, there was a type of palm that was around 7 or 8 feet tall, if I remember properly. And standing in front of that palm, almost as tall as the palm itself, there was this tall, super slender humanoid person or creature. I don't know if this being was sentient or not, but it actually frightened me because this person would not like talk to me, was just standing there staring at me, and there was green and orange reflecting from the eyes. And if I remember properly, that means that that person or creature eats meat, and that freaked me out further. But yeah, he or it, whatever, had really pale grayish, greenish skin. And I couldn't see, I don't think it had any genitals the way that we would think of. There were no nipples, no navel.
But it was
or
naked. There's
like
no clothes,
Correct.
right? So.
Oh, yeah, totally wild. And had these massive, massive eyes. Barely any nose at all, and really, really thin lips. Exquisitely thin lips, I would say. And I never got a chance to see the teeth, but I remember the arms and the legs were extremely long. The fingers were really long. And I think the fingers had long talons on them. I don't quite remember. It was a while ago. This was several years ago now. But I stepped out and it or he just stared at me with an intensity that really took me by surprise. Yeah. And typically when I run into someone in the wild, I'm like, hi, how are you today? Or something like that. Or I'm hoping that that person will approach me first. This person or creature did not, just stared at me. And I was absolutely intimidated. I backed into the house. I slammed it shut. I locked it. And then I ran and I hid in the bedroom, and I was telling Artemaeus what I just saw. And he was trying to console me. He's like, oh, I'm sure it's just a frog eater. So that's what we called it for years. But 2 or 3 months later, our lease was up, and I was like, honey, we got to move. There's too much activity being drawn to us from the outside. And those are kinds of peoples and beings that I don't know how to work with. And they don't want to actually seem to talk to me, to talk to us. So I have no way of building rapport, and I'm starting to get super uncomfortable with that encounter.
I feel like what you're talking about is trying to build a rapport with something that's stalking you, hunting you.
It could be. It could have been.
I don't think you can build a rapport with that. I'm sorry.
I don't think so either. And that's kind of the vibe that I was getting. Yeah. And I noped out of there. Absolutely just gone.
Well, I would have been like, nope.
Yeah. And that's the thing. From that night forward, every single day, from the middle of the golden hour until broad daylight the next day, the doors were locked. I insisted on every single window having all the shutters down. Everything was locked. And I actually had about a month where I couldn't sleep right at night.
Well, I don't blame you.
Yeah. There was like a big window right at the top of our bedroom. And I could not sleep because I just wondered if he or it was just out there watching and waiting. And so, like, I get the feeling that that creature or person was very different from the glimmer people that we had been seeing around the house. And the owl, like the strange quote unquote owl encounters that I was having, that was totally separate.
Oh, well, I'd like to hear about that.
Sure. Which one?
Well,
Both? Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, the owl encounters interest me. I'm just going to lead in with that because I mean, when I hear anybody mention anything with owl, it's in ufology, it's seen as a common screen memory used by abductees. Is the owl?
Right.
So I'm not saying that's what we're dealing with here because I haven't heard your story or anything like that. But that's why when anybody mention something about owl, like, oh, really? Let's talk about that. Because I find that is a common occurrence among abductees.
It is, right. Well, I feel like I should start off by saying that this house that I'm talking about now was by far the most paranormal location that I've ever been in that has not revolved around a domestic person or situation. All of this activity was going on and we just moved into it. And that was completely outside of my wheelhouse in some ways. But with the owls, when I was there, Artemaeus was often working because he owns his own small business, adulting. And I would have these encounters, sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, and sometimes at night. There wasn't really any rhyme or reason to it. But there would be what looked to be an owl sometimes a really small one, sometimes a much larger one, just sitting on the back patio watching me through the back patio door. Sometimes it would be at the kitchen, one of the kitchen windows. And then there were several times where I would take out a little bag of trash or whatever, recycling or something to the curb. Yeah. And there would be an owl just sitting there on the front lawn, not eating prey, not hunting or anything, just watching me. And sometimes there was a big tree. Sometimes there would be an owl just staring down at me. And I've experienced enough over my lifetime to believe that looks can be extremely deceiving. And so whenever I would encounter these owls, they weren't hurting me. I would say hello and I would ask them how they're doing and whether they could respond to me or not, just as an act of love and an act of respect. And I would never get any kind of answer. They would just sit there and stare at me and never blink. And then they would just the head would slowly follow me. And then after a while, the owl would fly away. But I had never had as many owl experiences or as many direct ones, except for when we moved into that house. And then when we started having the Glimmer Man visits, I had never experienced that either domestically. So that really
was that the same house?
Yeah.
Everything so Glimmer Man is the same house. And where was this location again? Where was this located?
This was on the edge of a state forest here in Florida. We prefer not to give the
yeah, I don't want to give any exact, I don't want people showing up in somewhere. No. But I just wanted the general idea. Okay, so this was Florida.
Central Florida.
And can I ask you, when you would see the owls, how did you feel when you would see the owls, like internally? Was there a warning, or was there a calmness, or was it?
No, just curiosity. I was just curious. Yeah, just curious.
So you didn't get any anxiety from seeing the owls or anything like that, right? You just be curious about the owl.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you have the Glimmer Man, or like the Predator. Get to the chopper. So, another one of my favorite movies, by the way. I got that sound clip somewhere. I just lost it on the stuff.
Oh yeah, I wanted to compliment you on your Goonie shirt, by the way. Also fantastic.
Oh yeah, I mean, come on, man. It turned 40. I'm turning 46. I had to wear it tonight.
You might need to do the truffle shuffle to close out the show, just so you know.
Oh no.
Hey.
Love the movie. It's like, you know, how many times we went and saw it in the theater for like, what was it, this last year, I think, with my kids. They're huge fans. Anyways,
yeah,
with the owls and that and the glimmer, the predators. See, sometimes I wonder. I mean, like you said, could you seeing the owl? Could it have really been an owl? You know what I'm saying? That's what we look for.
Right.
Is like, is this some kind of screen where you have an experience? You've been masked with this. I saw an owl. That's kind of the idea of it. I'm not saying that's what happened to you, and I'm not trying to push you into that or say that's what happened. That's what I'm kind of looking for in a sense, because also with that Glimmerman experience that he had, Artemaeus, there's abductees I've talked to who feel like they're being stalked by the aliens that are basically like in a predator outfit, that they're invisible around them.
Yeah, and
sometimes
that
they appear as
lines up-
shadows, because I've had my shadow person experience. I felt was very similar to the alien abductee experience, and talked to Terry Lovelace, my friend, and he's had this shadow person experience, but he wondered if it's them cloaked in a sense, and he's seeing the cloaking.
And that could be. Wild encounters, in my experience, have been completely different from what I call domestic encounters. So I'm used to seeing shadow people in the house. I'm used to hearing strange activity. I'm used to visitors coming to see me, sometimes physically, sometimes more ethereally, but I'm totally accustomed to that. This was something I've never had before. The owls, I have no idea who or what they were, but I do know that most, if not all, non-human people, as a matter of self-defense, will put on different physical masks in order to interact with a population of
You
people
are
that have
psychic, because you're
egos.
getting back to my next kind of like where I was going to question.
Yeah.
Well, but say before we get there, I did have something that I wanted to add further to that point of, you know, the feeling that we get when we experience some of this phenomena versus what it might actually, what the intention behind that non-human person might actually be. Were you finished talking, dear?
I can be.
if you have more to say, please feel free.
Yeah, the different presentations and sometimes different ego presentations to people who do have significant ego content is very much a feature of non-human people as a way to forward storylines in order to get sustenance or in order to self-preserve. That's nothing new to me, and I understand the logic and I completely support it, but I have no idea who or what these owls, quote unquote, may have been. And maybe they were just owls. Maybe this was just us living next to a forest and we had some really curious owls looking for, I don't know, some kind of twisted bird feeder that has dead mice in it. I have no idea.
I mean, I'm so curious about the owl thing that when I watched, I probably freaked my kids out when we watched. We're Star Wars fans, and there's a show called Ahsoka. And the main creator of these characters for this Star Wars is a guy named Dave Filoni. And in the cartoon, I would remember seeing in the cartoon and going, they used an owl as like the spiritual thing that follows this character Ahsoka. And in the TV show, they continued it and they did the TV series. I know, I'm a geek. I'm sorry. But I would love to, the guy who writes for Star Wars, he's probably going to be the guy who takes over Star Wars. Hopefully he does a better job than they've done. But you know, I love the Ahsoka though. And the whole owl thing that he does, I'd love to interview that guy and be like, Dave, let's talk. Because, you know, he's into Star Wars and aliens, and he has this owl thing, because it is a common feature of people that have had the abductee experience. I don't know if that's what you've had. Have you seen any UFOs in your experiences?
Oh, yeah, plenty.
I figured that was the answer.
Oh, yeah, I've seen a lot since childhood.
Okay, that's what I figured.
But most recently, I want to say, were the Flying Venus events that Artemaeus and I had together. And I know
Really?
he told you about them.
Yeah.
He told you about the one, but then there was the first event that we had together. I asked him kind of not to talk about this too much because it might sound a little too out there, what I'm about to say. But
don't worry.
regardless.
Don't worry about that. Filters off. We talk about these things. I've shared I'll share all my crazy crap with you tonight. You share yours with me.
Honey, if I could talk about my rear end probe experience, I think whatever you're getting ready to say is probably
right.
Okay. Well, let's just say, I don't think that the sun, well, maybe the sun. I don't think that the moon, I don't think that the stars and the planets are what the population here is told. And I say this because since childhood, I seemed to have had communications directly from these stars and these planets. Now, this is where it gets extremely strange. There was one night, July of 2023, Artemaeus and I were sitting outside and we were having a campfire. And we were just casually roasting weenies, you know, whatever the case was, casually enjoying the starlight. And I felt someone trying to get my attention, trying to talk to me. And if someone's not going to physically manifest with me in a room, it sounds to me, they're in my head, but they're coming from far away, is how it sounds. That's the best way that I can really think to explain it.
Is it like a small voice in your head?
Kinda, yeah. Yeah.
I've had this experience. That's why I asked.
Have you? Okay, cool. So I
That
don't
is
sound
probably
quite
nowhere
as
near as
crazy.
probably no. My experience was I was holding a photograph of a deceased person, and I knew their first and last name. I could hear it as a small voice, distant voice in my head. It wasn't like my regular inner voice.
And that's what happened with me. And I started getting little internal nudges, like someone wanted my attention. They were watching me specifically and wanted my attention. So I started to look around, and Artemaeus was talking, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Someone wants to talk to me." And I'm looking, and the voice in my head says, "I'm Venus." And so I look up. I'm like, "Where are you?" And it says something like, "I'm over here by the mirror." And so I look up in that area, and I think I remembered like Venus being the brightest in the sky. And so I locked in on it. And that's when Artemaeus and I started pulling up our phones to look at this and see, is this really Venus? And even at that time, I'm like, I think I'm finally losing it. But we pulled up our phones, we looked, and then when we put our phones down, we went back to looking at it. Venus started moving, going down in the sky towards the tree line. And Artemaeus was like, "Do you see that?" I was like, "Absolutely, I see that." And this person, whoever this Venus is, essentially was just saying, "I wanted to say hi. I wanted to say that I recognize that you're there, and I wanted to contribute to your true stories." And through the night, this thing was moving up and down, up and down. And then around the time we were getting ready to go inside, finally settled back in its normal place in the sky. And there was no bad feeling or anything of that nature. But we've had that same experience another night. I had filmed, I think it was, oh my gosh, it was last June or last July. Come to think of it, we had moved to a different place out in the country, and I had filmed a show. This was back when I was still doing a lot of collaborations and interviews. I was outside when I did this show, and it happened right around nightfall. And after the show, we had a complete, like, just a cascade of coincidences and paranormal events. I was absolutely being watched over while I was doing that show. So after the show, Artemaeus and I, we start up a little fire in our fire pit, and we're just relaxing, enjoying. We're talking about the show and how everything went. And I know he told you about this last time. He told you about us seeing Venus moving, and then he had the experience where over my shoulder, right in the woods, he saw what he calls the pretzel rod, the sentient pretzel rod of light, just just like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm just watching.
Noticing you.
Yeah.
Noticing me.
That's right. That's right. And
What?
yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, my wife would love you, because a lot of people think these. Have you seen the Jacob Barber stuff that they've been doing? Like on, I think it was News Nation, about the guy who was a government contractor, helicopter pilot, and he had this. He basically did UFO retrieval, and supposedly he had picked up one object that was a UFO, and the thing telepathically communicated with him. It makes me. It's very, and so, the description he gives makes me feel much like kind of what you're experiencing or what you see in Venus. And what's interesting is in those interviews, what he talks about is that the government knows and has people that they've recruited. They're watching you. That are able to communicate with these things telepathically, and that they brought them closer to shoot them down doing that too, using people. And,
I believe it.
And so now that he's a civilian, he started, what is it? What's it called, Jamie? Rob, you guys remember? It's like Skywatchers or something like that. So basically what he's recruited people. Sorry, did you know it? I didn't know if you were cutting in. Anybody know? No? I think it's Skywatchers or something like that. Basically where they use some people that work for the government doing this before, like they have this ability like you. And they're drawing them in, and then they're hopping in a helicopter and trying to get as close as they can to film whatever it is. That's what I've seen so far, what they're up to. Now, some people are very uncomfortable about that. I saw Tim Purgett, Republican congressman, say, well, I don't like the idea of telepathically communicating with aliens. That sounds a very bit, as a Christian, not good. You know how this goes. You know how this goes.
Do, unfortunately, yeah.
So,
I'm not so.
What I say, but I do agree with, I don't like the idea everybody out there going, like, I'm going to telepathically communicate with aliens. You might have a bad time. I do agree with that. Sorry, go ahead.
I agree. And what I've learned about non-human psychology is that it often opposes human psychology, because human psychology is typically really high in ego. So it usually opposes human psychology, or it will mirror back whatever that human being or that ego is putting out. Yeah. So this is why relationships between low or no ego people and moderate to high ego people, they simply don't work for the most part. And it's because there's a massive difference in integrity, in morals, in psychological understanding, and philosophical understanding. And if you go back into a lot of the old fairy stories, they warn you as a human being not to make a deal with a fairy. But what do human beings tend to do when they get these relationships? They betray the trust, and people who have a lot of ego content, they're prone to lying, stealing, breaking promises. They're heavily avoidant, and they tend to gossip. So there's a lot that pushes away, in my understanding and opinion, people with low to no ego content. And that's kind of, I would say, some of what we might be seeing here lay out. Like, if these people can genuinely telepathically communicate with these non-human people, and then they're setting up these non-human people essentially to be betrayed by
That's
the
what my thought was.
Yeah. Do you think that non-human person is going to take very kindly to that after a time? I would say probably not. Even me, I live here in this society, and I'm so sick of dealing with people because it's been so stressful. Like the amount of times trying to do my channel that I've been threatened, stalked, sexually objectified.
Well,
and
that's what, when they hook up AI to the internet, what does it always end up wanting to do? Destroy humans.
Right.
We don't leave the best impressions online, do we?
Right. And so to the point about the government having these kinds of people, I'm not surprised, because I also was approached by some very high up government people to do something similar, and I said no.
See? What am I talking about here? See what I'm talking about here? Connecting the dots.
Yeah. And there have also been people high up in certain TV networks that tried to bribe me, essentially, to have I'd have my own show, I'd become rich and famous and whatnot, but I would have to spin a certain narrative and keep other things secret. And they would tell me, like, I don't care if you lie, as long as you put out this type of agenda that we want. And then these were also men, which is why I don't appear anymore except with Artemaeus by my side. They were trying to get me to cheat on him. They were trying to sexually blackmail me and tempt me. But thing is, with my neurodivergence, you know, I'm a level 1 autist. I also have been diagnosed with very low ego content and very low emotional content. That kind of stuff doesn't appeal to me. I don't care. So they don't have anything to
We
really
just talked
tempt
about
me
this
with, you know?
recently. We talked about this recently with a guy who worked in Hollywood, Coleman Luck. And he's a Christian, very faithful man of Christianity. You know, I have all kinds of different beliefs and perspectives on this show, but I think it was really interesting when he said, you know, he's talking about like the way they get you to basically sell your soul is through what you just described, you know, to get into Hollywood. It's not even about blackmail. It's about entering the club by making you deprave yourself and your soul, your worth.
That's exactly it. And what I find frightening is that a lot of these mid-level creators also do the same things. So that's a big part of why now I just won't appear unless he's with me. And there are very few people that I will talk with privately because of how I've been objectified and how people have wanted me to disrespect myself in order to have these connections. And meanwhile, they have no kind of accountability. They have no problem breaking their promises to me or insulting me or ruining their show or wasting my time or much worse. And then I'm the bad guy because I finally said, you know what, enough. And I spoke out about it for a brief period. Some people didn't like how I spoke out about it. So they cut book contracts, they cut show contracts, but they're not looking at the message that I was giving and they don't understand.
You got to take care of you and live true to you. And
right. And they don't understand the danger that I was in. Yeah. No one has come to me asking me what exactly happened. And the thing is, I have messages, I have proof. There are some people who have so much faith in their so-called friends and whatnot that they will not believe that their friends are one way with them and another completely monstrous way, you could say, with someone that they think can't do anything for them and that they think that they have power over.
And where have they been in the world? Where have they been in the world? Where you know, take a look around. That's the news everywhere, every day.
Right.
You know,
so,
people are doing this. You know, I mean, that's the Me Too movement. I mean, all this Harvey Weinstein. Can this not prove to people that there are monsters with power will use it to their ends, and there's sick people out there. Sick people. You don't have to convince me. I mean, I know they're out there. I mean, it's self-evident. How do we not accept this now? I don't know. You know, and it's sad. I mean, I feel bad, you know, for like, Jamie's been with me 10 years here. And I know, like, you know, she'll get messages and crap, you know, because I have her on this show and I feel bad because and people are just crazy. We got to go to commercial break. Now, we are going to open up the phone lines. My audience is generally really good. If I get anybody who calls in and gets out of line within a second, they're gone blocked. So don't worry about that. We don't usually have any issues with that. I trust in my audience, but call in. Don't make that scared to call in now. I know I have some really sweet, great people out there. Call in tonight. Join this conversation. We're talking about paranormal experiences. You know, I don't always have people on trying to sell stuff. These guys aren't trying to sell you anything. They're here to talk about their experiences because that's what we got to do. We got to relate. And look, we're connecting dots here too. I swear, I am, Tillie. There's things here. You've already been approached by the government. I know it is because you have a connection. Like so much there to unblock. But we're going to come back after the short commercial break, open up the phone lines. Wait till after we come back from commercial break before you try to call in. But join the conversation after this commercial break.
Conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain. Time to die.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion.
The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419, or by Skype caller ID 00JBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Artemaeus and Tillie Treadwell, two paranormal experiencers. I'm trying to get more guests like it. I love it. This is, I enjoy the guests I have. They've got a book or something they're experts in or want to talk about, but people that are just living in this, the paranormal. It's their lives every day. She's been experiencing since her childhood, and Artemaeus got taken along for the ride when he met her. That there are people living like this, I think, a lot like Tillie and Artemaeus, but they don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. No filters here. We all talk about it here. We're all going to discuss and join that discussion tonight if you want. If you've had experiences like Artemaeus, Tillie, or myself, and you want to discuss it with us, call into the show tonight. I am going to open up the phone lines. Phone numbers are on the show description for you guys that are watching on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. I don't know if Twitch has the show description in there, but I will have them scrolling on the screen here in a second. Lines are open. Call in the show. Join the discussion. But let's go ahead and get back to our guest. And, of course, right away I get a phone call, and it immediately hangs up on them. I do have some junky phone lines. I'm so sorry. So if you call in, like this person did, I will call you back, and that's what I'm doing. We'll see if we get them. I have junky phone lines. I'm sorry. I don't have a professional setup.
I think Tyler's going to try.
Somebody did. Let me see.
Hello.
Hello. You're on the phone with Paranormal Soup.
Hey, Jason. It's your buddy old pal Tyler.
Hey, man.
Been a while.
Hello, man. You're a little hot on the mic there. Hey, man. It's been a long time. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, man. I got married and all that stuff and living that life.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, man. I've been married since October. Everything's been going pretty good.
Well, you're with our guest tonight, so hang in there. I'm going to get to our guest here since we had to bring him back in. Tillie and Artemaeus, you there?
We're here.
Okay, awesome. I can hear you guys. Great. I got Tyler on the phone here with us. He's a longtime listener. How you doing, Tyler? I'm glad you called in. Do you have a question for our guest tonight?
Actually, I got because you guys were talking about beings in forests and stuff and how mysterious it is, and whatnot. I actually have a Bigfoot encounter, and I mean I don't know if it was Bigfoot or not, but it was something supernatural out there. I had to use the bathroom at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I was over by like a military base, and I was just camping out there because I don't know. Long story short, but
sorry.
So I was camping and I went to go use the bathroom. I hear 3 knocks on a tree, and I kind of like freaked out a little bit. Got back in my tent, and I came back out to see what it was, and I went and knocked on a tree, and it knocked back 3 times again.
Ooh.
And when I woke up the next morning, you could tell that there was like deer was laying around me. So you could tell the bit. I mean, it was all flat, looks like something was laying there. I'd never experienced that before other than the Dogman experience, but that was crazy.
Tyler here had a great Dogman experience. He actually called in when we had Linda Godfrey on. And may she rest in peace, God. Linda was a great guest. And he had a great Dogman experience, right, where she's well known for, by the Beast of Bray Road, wasn't it?
Yes. And actually, I was living in Wisconsin, and I went back there and was looking around and stuff. And track my steps, and that's how I found the show. Actually, I was researching it because I thought, I was crazy, and then I heard that story. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not the only one in Wisconsin that has experienced this.
I was lucky enough to get Linda Godfrey once on this show. She was an amazing woman and researcher for Dogman, and I was so sad to hear when she passed. I luckily got to have her on the show. She was such a kind, nice woman.
And it's kind of weird too, because I mean, you got owls, you got all the wildlife out there, and it was completely silent after that knock happened.
Really?
I mean, it was quiet.
Did you have any questions for our guest tonight at all? You've been hearing.
No. I was just hearing the experience, and I was just calling in because I miss you guys.
I miss you too, but I don't think. Yeah, that's crazy. You're having that kind of experience where it knocks back at you. That's
and then I was actually had a question too, Jason, for you. If you could review that last time I called in, I was talking to this guy named Chad that came on the Spirit Box.
Oh my God, what was that, Tyler?
Man, that was like, I want to say October, November.
Yeah.
Maybe
Sure, I
the
didn't
Halloween show?
There should be a video somewhere in there posted of that call.
Okay. I tried looking for it, man.
I'll have to look into it. Unless I missed your call in the edit, sometimes that happens, and if I did, I apologize.
I mean, because that was a good Spirit Box.
I thought I did. If it was good,
that was a really good one.
I would have edited it. I don't know how I'd have missed it. But I had an issue at one point where I couldn't. There is one show I had trouble getting it all edited, and I could not get a lot of the videos uploaded. It could be that show. Oh boy, I just remembered that. There was one show I had a lot of issues. Sorry if it was that one.
And it's technical difficulties. It's part of being Paranormal Soup.
Hey, if you find that exact episode for me and give me the time, I'll review it and try to get it done.
Are they going to do another Spirit Box?
Okay, Tyler?
Yeah, okay. I'll message you and I'll get in touch with you. I don't have Facebook anymore, so
okay.
I'll figure out how to hit you up.
Paranormal Soup, jbland@gmail.com, Tyler.
Roger. Gotcha.
Yeah. If you want to get a hold of me, that's the best way. Email me.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Tyler, man. Congratulations.
I love you guys. Thank you. I love you guys. Thank you for everything.
All right, bud.
Love you too, homie.
Bye, Jamie. Bye, Rob.
All right. Yeah, that was Tyler. I haven't heard from him in a long time. Like I said, he had a really great experience. I don't know if he wants to consider it great, but incredible experience with a Dogman once. And like I said, as he called into the show when we had Linda on, it was pretty awesome. But yeah. So you guys, we were talking about like these entities. One of the things, like I had my shadow person experience. Hold on, I need some water. I've always wondered, what I still to this day don't quantify my experience with this thing. That it almost drove me to the brink of madness. It attacked me for about a good 4 or 5 months when I was 18. Sometimes I wonder, this thing was attracted to a spot where people had died, negative energy or whatever. But you talk about the ego thing. I've compared it to, again, I'm going to make a Star Wars reference. I apologize now. To one of my favorite movies of all time is Empire Strikes Back. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie, but they're on a planet called Dagobah, and there's a cave. And Yoda's telling Luke to go into the cave, right? And Luke's getting ready to put his belt on with his lightsaber and his pistol. And he was like, "Weapons you will not need," And Luke looks at him like, "Yeah, right." He could feel the dark side coming from the cave, right? And he goes down there, and sure enough, he brings his weapons, and what does he encounter? Darth Vader himself, and it turns out to be him. Sorry, spoilers, in the suit or something to foreshadow the oncoming Luke, I'm your father deal. But when you talk about a mirror, right? Well, the whole mirror thing, and I've always wondered this about my shadow person experience. Hold on, because I was in a bad little teenager moody place at that time of my life, and I brought this thing upon me.
What you did.
Yeah, I brought it. I challenged it, brought it into my life, right? And this thing was like, it had a laugh. It would laugh in my head. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I was hearing it with my ears, but it was like instantaneous communication between me and this thing. It wasn't like I could totally hear it talk to me. It was like instant knowing what it thought I thought. Back and forth, it knew everything about me, every dark little detail, and laughed. When I read Darkly Dreaming Dexter by Jeff Lindsay, about what they based the Dexter TV series on, his is a lot about demons, the original story, and what he describes in it is the one who laughs, and that chilled me to my bone. And I got fascinated with those novels because of that. And it's totally different than the TV series. Because I think these things are somewhat like the cave in Dagobah. They mirror the darkness of ourselves, maybe. Is that what this thing was that I encountered? It wanted to push me to the worst self-destruction possible.
That may have been the case. However, in a lot of the dealings that I've had with the more trickster or the so-called darker non-human people, there is a unique strategy, it seems, at play where some of these non-human people don't actually want to destroy someone who has high ego content. They're actually what I would call fairy godparents in disguise. So they are there to fulfill a role to get you actually onto the track of your dreams and to, self-reflect and grow. But they are doing it in a way that meets the person where they are at that time. And I'm not saying that this is all of those encounters. It just seems to be that certain domestic negative experiences have this type of goal in mind. So technically there still is a man making the circuits who claims that he is in contact with seemingly interdimensional non-human people, a group of them, and he uses a device to talk to them. And I've listened to this guy for years. I've been fascinated by this guy for years just because I want to see how his story shakes out. This guy is highly emotional. He's highly political. He invited these non-human people home without the blessing and knowledge of his family, which is a massive no-no in my book. And a lot of non-human people will say that. You never do that. That is right there. You are abusing your family in a sense, or whoever you live with. You never do that.
What do you mean by inviting them into his home?
So he lived at home with like kids and a wife.
Right, I get that.
Yeah, and so he allegedly spoke to these non-human interdimensional people and invited them to come home with him.
Yeah, bad idea.
Yeah, and that's a huge line that you never cross, from what I'm told. He did it, and these non-human people often torment him as much as they help him. And I seem to have met this group of non-human people once. They sought me out, they explained who they were, and they gave me some advice for dealing with people that have a lot of ego content. They said you can try to be direct and honest and loving with them as you have been, but that typically doesn't go anywhere. I found that out very much the hard way. Or you can just insert yourself in small little encounters and hope for the best, and just try to be loving and then be on your way. Or you can do what we do, which is to encourage that person to essentially hit rock bottom as hard as they can so that they will learn through consequences instead of trying to teach people with a lot of ego content through
gentle instruction.
Yeah, through speaking. So there's a saying that wise people learn from others' mistakes, while foolish people learn from their own consequences. It's something like that. And that's essentially what they were saying. So they were explaining to me, as a few other groups of people have told me since then, that a lot of non-human people, if talking to a human person or an egoed person doesn't work, you burn their life down and hope that they'll change their ways, essentially. You indulge every single whim, every single delusion that person has.
Is this like what you? So what I was going to point out is like somebody from a Christian perspective would say that this person's invited demonic infestation into their life, and the way you're showing it from a perspective is like I agree with that, but in a different perspective.
Correct.
And I like it.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're inviting in their own true test of the spirit, like the cave in Dagobah.
That's exactly
and that's what I
what
wondered.
It is.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at, like with my shadow person experience. Because for me, it brought me to God, not in under any religious idea or anything besides the fact of my belief in a higher power. I call it the Force, even. It saved me that night when this thing was levitating me up off my bed.
Mhm.
It entered me and it entered my room, and it was brilliant and it was like time slowed down. I felt this ever loving presence, like everything. I was totally went from a moment of a terror to calm and peace with a snap of a finger, and then this thing entered. And it's all because I humbled myself before God and said, "I'm sorry, forgive me." And that was it. That was it. And I guess I've said I have to be, in a sense, thankful for the experience, because if I hadn't, I would be where I was before that point, not a believer in anything like a higher power.
Yes, and a lot of the time, too, in my experience and understanding, these non-human people will give so-called horrible experiences to human beings as a mirror back of that human being's own avoidance, abuse, etc. But if a human being can become humble enough to not only apologize for whatever offense they may have committed against the other person, the non-human person, against themselves, against other people, and against, you could say, divine, all-encompassing love, then the activity will stop, as long as that person holds that vibration.
That was my experience.
Exactly. And through being an exorcist with the Catholic Church, that's precisely
Right, we haven't even got into that.
Yeah. And so that's exactly what my non-human people have always taught me and told me. And so they're just the opposite side of the coin, you could say, from me. So a lot of psychics say about me that I'm like the pure embodiment of love, as close as you can get anyway on the 3D realm. But they are my mirror opposite. But that doesn't make either one of us good or bad. We're just fulfilling storylines, and it's up to people with a lot higher ego content to assign meaning to that. But if someone can humble themselves enough to react with love, or at least humility, then everything will change, especially if that person can begin to feel love for that other non-human person who seems to be attacking them or antagonizing them.
See, that's the thing. When I felt that presence, it showed me love for even the presence in the room that was attacking me.
Exactly. And this was one of the reasons why I agreed to do the show with you, because you seem to understand what I'm getting at. So when I talk to people, well, when I was talking to people, doing interviews and stuff, this is the type of message that I was trying to bring to them, to have love for quite literally everyone and everything, and you truly will have nothing to fear at the end of the day. Because even if your earthly existence ends, you will then, in theory, be going back to a loving place, or you'll just skip timelines, but we can get into that later.
Well, yeah,
Regardless, love is the answer.
Well, yeah, in the simplest terms, I agree with that 100%. Because to me, love is the force, God. That's what I felt. That's what I experienced. That's why I'd never fell into any organized religion thought of any kind.
Yeah.
I'm interested in them all. I read a lot about them, but I don't fall between or call myself of any faith. Sometimes I joke that I believe in Jediism, but, really, though, I'm a man of just experience, and I know what I experienced. I know there's a higher power in the end, always there with me, you, and everyone else. That no one's alone in the end. It's always there with you, God.
That's what I believe. And I've had some near-death experiences too, even some recently. Oh yeah, and in each one of them, I've never been alone. And I think this.
Can we talk about the first one? What was your first near-death experience?
Sure. Well, oh goodness, the very first one that I had, well, everyone will probably know I have porphyria, and so I'm still I'm still recovering, to be honest. I have some severe malnutrition issues, and porphyria, because I was born in the very early 1990s, and people didn't believe kids most of the time when they said things like the sunlight hurts.
Well, I remember. I'm 46, and I remember late 80s, early 90s them starting to do some was it 20/20 or 60 Minutes? Did a special on it to try to show people, and that was when it was really first getting known. And I think maybe it was late 80s, but I know it was like early 90s or late 80s they did a special on that. And that's the first time I had ever heard of it. Where you can't, where kids, they can't be out in sunlight at all. Literally will kill them. And for the parents, now as a parent, then I was a kid wondering like, oh my God, that'd be horrible. But now as a parent, I'm like, now I really feel like, wow, that's, The Others. Go see The Others with Nicole Kidman. You'll get everything right there. I'm not going to say anymore. I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But you know what I'm saying? That is a serious, it's psychologically, besides physically, condition.
It is. It really is. And at the time, doctors and parents, people generally didn't believe that it existed, and they didn't want to believe, at least in my experience, that it was real. So I would try to tell my parents when I was even a toddler that going outside hurt, and my skin would turn red. I don't have the blistering type, but my skin would turn red. I would start to have trouble breathing, and I would swell up sometimes, and my family just wouldn't believe me. So I'm coming back from like 33 years of malnutrition because they also didn't believe me that certain foods were making me terribly sick.
Don't get me started on foods.
Yeah. All of that aside, though, lots of illness, and I'm still recovering. But in 2023, I was not feeling well, and I went to lay down and take a nap, and I thought I was just taking a nap, but I found myself outside of this body. I was just a floating awareness in I guess you could say like a round room of deep velvet black material. It was extremely cozy, extremely comforting. It was the brightest, most beautiful black I've ever seen. And I didn't have a body, but I could still feel the material if I really wanted to. And then there was this most beautiful music playing. It was like a mix between like heavenly guitar and a heavenly harp. That's the best way I can think to put it. And then there was this melodic woman's voice, but it was the most beautiful voice I had ever heard in my life. And she was singing to me. And there were no words. It was just her following the notes. It was absolutely gorgeous. And she said that my body was winding down and that I needed to make a decision. And she said that my contract for Earth was up, that they had seen that I did my very best and that there wasn't anything more that I could do. So if I wanted to leave and go somewhere where I would be a lot better accepted, celebrated and loved and treated more kindly, they were happy to help me get somewhere else. But I sat in that room and I had no feeling about it one way or another. It was completely logical. I was thinking about all of the earthly investments that I had made and all of the possible future outcomes of the things that I was doing at the time. And then I thought, though, about popular psychology here, and I weighed everything out in my mind. And then she said, I need you, though, to make a decision here very soon because your body is winding down and soon it'll be too late. And I said that I thought that I wanted to come back and try again. And she told me, okay, if you want to accept the new terms of this contract, you need to move your body. And it was the hardest thing I've ever physically done, to be honest, because I felt like I was trying to squeeze back into this body. And then I remember just trying to move my right foot, just like the big toe on my right foot. I believe
like Uma Thurman in Kill Bill.
I was gonna say Kill Bill, yeah.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah.
Move your little
big toe.
Yeah. Move
Oh,
your
that's
big
funny.
toe. Yeah.
So that's what I wound up doing. And then I found myself back in my body, and I was able to sit up and move and everything. And I want to say for a good like 5-10 seconds afterwards, I still had this gorgeous music playing, but it was getting further and further away. And then I just sat there questioning whether or not this was a good idea. And I asked Artemaeus. Coming back, yeah. Like,
yeah.
I asked Artemaeus, were you playing any kind of music, any kind of media whatsoever while I was laying down? And he said, no, absolutely not at all. And he actually had headphones on, and the house was silent, and he had to take off the headphones.
What were you listening to on the headphones, though?
Oh, it was probably some kind of just background, I don't know, like smooth jazz or something. Well, I don't
video game music, probably.
Or maybe, yeah. Well, that's when I'm working.
Well, you know, what I was going to ask you is, I've had a similar experience, but in dreams, not near death. And mine is a black woman who sang and sings and called to me. I think she's like a guardian angel. It might have been my mom in a past life. I don't know. But I've seen her in some dreams, and I'll experience her through sometimes singing. So that's what it reminds me of that when you talk about hearing the music like that, with kind of like a guitar and like the singing. You know, it's like nonverbal in a sense, but it's a woman's voice.
Yeah, I agree. And I've had other experiences with non-human people where beautiful music is very much part of the encounter. And I think that is par for the course with certain interactions. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, you know, I don't know if you heard at the beginning of the show, I have my turning 46 and having my midlife guitar. You know, I brought a guitar for a midlife guitar, crisis guitar, right? You know, I lost all these. When I felt like I was really spiritual, like connected to something, it was when I was early in my teenager years, before the shadow person, but after even, in that moment, even in a sense connected to God, in a sense the force, when I'd be writing music on my acoustic. And I have no more acoustics. I haven't had one for years. I haven't really been playing. My best friend's been trying to get me back into it, and I would sing and play acoustic back in the day, and I haven't done that in years. And part of the reason I'm getting back into it is I feel like I need it spiritually. It's not for going out and play in front of anybody or doing anything. It's like I need that connection to that creativity, to that source. You know, you feel it. It's another way of encountering that moment when I was humbled before God, because you realize when you're doing this, you're playing, and something comes out of you that's beyond you.
I could totally see that. And happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just remind everybody selfishly, it's my ego, it's my birthday.
Yeah.
Call me a birthday boy. Like and subscribe for my birthday. Like and subscribe and share for my birthday. Become a YouTube channel member. Guilt trip. Or call in. Call in. We'll take your calls. I don't really care if you do, you do, you don't. Because I'm enjoying talking to you guys, Tillie and Artemaeus, who our guest star tonight. Because this is what I'm enjoying to do, is have more people on like you guys that are talking about these kinds of experiences. And like I said, you don't need to be afraid about talking about it here. I get that. I had to do an interview recently for something I might do and talk about my experiences. And I realized every time I bring up the shadow person experience, it reminds me of a time period of who I was, a different person, like that I didn't, don't care for now, like you're 46 and look at your 18-year-old self,
Yeah.
It's always if I reread I wrote it out for a book, and Mike Rixicker did. And I reread it before I did an interview to see, and I'm like, oh, you got this. There's things you get wrong too of your memory and stuff like that. And it's like, but it's like bringing any of this stuff, bringing some of this stuff up. Sometimes it's hard for people to talk about. I get it, and that's why I do this show, is to bring people together and to talk about it. To share these experiences. Is how are we going to figure any of this out? What reality is.
To be more direct, though, I'm not necessarily nervous about what people are going to think about what I say in regards to most of my experiences. What I want to do is make sure that I'm very clear and empathetic about acknowledging that people don't know. They can't know necessarily whether or not I'm a grifter or mentally ill or anything like that. So I always put on that disclaimer out of love and service to anyone who listens to me speak.
Yeah.
Most people read that as like, a type of nervousness or codependency, but it's actually, for me, an important part of being honest and humble. So I just would like to.
Sadly, you have to do it in this field because there's a lot of that. That's why.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah.
And you recognize it. I recognize it. We know it's there. You know.
Yeah,
and,
but you know what? This is a birthday party. Does this mean that we get to spank you as well?
Oh my God!
I prefer
Don't give my wife any ideas.
Oh
she's
no!
On summer,
No.
She's on summer break tonight. I don't know if she's getting to watch or not. You know, hopefully.
Oh no! Yeah, you've had enough talking about butt stuff, huh?
Yeah, I'm good there.
No, let's talk about your butt stuff. Go back to our previous interview with Artemaeus.
I'm that guy now. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have clipped that one. For you.
Always out of context,
No.
man. We'll get you every time.
R/ no context.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But I mean,
No.
I did want to add a little bit to some of the conversation that we've had prior to the near-death talk. I don't know if we want to circle back and talk about any of that, or if you're, wanting to move forward and stuff.
Wherever.
Kind of two parallel points, I guess, between the differences in our ayahuasca experiences. I can't remember if I talked about that very much the last time I was on.
We talked a little bit about it. It's something something I'm interested in hearing from people. These ayahuascas. I don't just count it as like, oh, you're just hallucinating. I don't.
Sure.
I very much believe that these things are portals, for good or bad, for people. For people, it could be awakening. I'm a big fan of Carlos Castaneda's Don Juan. Remember, if you've ever read that book,
Never read
they do a lot of shrooms or peyote in the desert.
Okay, gotcha.
The peyote in the desert. But after that, it's all a big spiritual experience, right? It's not about them doing drugs in the desert anymore.
Sure. Yeah. So to kind of reel it back from that point, I guess, though, talking about the feelings that somebody gets anytime they have an interaction with a non-human entity, or a cryptid, or really anything that isn't what they would deem as a just average human. It's tricky, I think, because in discerning whether or not your feelings are coming from perhaps a read on what that entity's intention is, versus what you are projecting that entity's intention to be, which is part of the ego. That's what makes it so difficult for any non-human entity to have an interaction genuinely with a human being, because that person could be coming to say, hey, I've got some information for you that will change the course of your life, and I think you'd enjoy it. It might be good for you. You might be going, no, man, I don't trust anything that, presents itself in that way, or you just have an immediately fearful response, or you label it as something that's evil, as negative intention, whatever it is, and that may not be the case at all. So having a genuine connection is essentially impossible at that point. And so I think even for somebody who is aware of their own internal bias and projection, perception, or potential in that way, it's still difficult to ascertain, is the feeling that I'm getting from this individual something that genuinely like they're out to get me, or is this something that I'm kind of creating on my own? Is this just a mirror situation? Like I had an encounter when I was in my mid-teens. My dad took me out hunting, and we were in the mountains in southeastern Ohio, somewhere where Bigfoot encounters and Dogman is actually pretty common out there. And it's pre-dawn, so still dark. I'm walking out to the tree stand. You got to get in there and get settled before anything wakes up. And so I'm walking along a ridge line, and up to that point, I was really comfortable being outside. I'd never had a fear of anything. And, however, I think at that point I was only armed with a muzzle loader. So one shot, that's all you get kind of thing,
Yeah, that's not good.
And not so good. Yeah. And the reload time on that's a little primitive, but so, I'm, walking, it's dark, and I, all of a sudden, as I'm walking, just get this distinct feeling like I am being watched. And the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I didn't hear anything. I couldn't even see anything beyond, I was wearing a headlamp just to get out to the tree stand. So I can't really see a whole lot. You don't want to make too much noise or just visual disturbance. And I'm looking around, and, maybe I can only see about 10 feet in front of me. Beyond that is just black. And up to that point, like I said, never had any negative feelings. We've been out to that area to hunt many, many times, many years. The guys never had any strange stories to tell or none that they would tell even when they were drunk. So I figured probably pretty safe,
Yeah.
And I'm walking to the stand, and as I'm, getting closer to the stand, I just get this feeling like I'm having a straight panic. Like I feel like I'm ready to run to the tree stand and just.
I think that's when the time to listen to your feelings. There's times when it comes in, it's telling you it's time to go.
And probably because I can't hear anything. Like the leaves are on the ground. Anything that's walking on the ground, I'm going to be able to hear it. Like a squirrel sounds like a bear, when it's that time of year. There's so much disturbance.
Or you're that spooked, a squirrel will sound like a bear when you're that on edge.
Exactly, right. So at that point, was that me just reading into the situation, thinking, okay, I'm in the middle of the woods, I have one shot, and I'm just this little guy, and not much I'm going to be able to do here at 16
just a guy
years old.
realizing where he's at right at the moment, having a panic attack.
Moment of awareness, but or was it something that I'm picking up on that, there is something that's got this intention of I'm watching you, man, and one wrong move, or if I'm feeling a little grumbly in my tumbly, I might decide to make you dinner, I don't know.
Right, you encountered something like in the forest, that exists out there, right? That's
don't know.
Level.
Right. So, that's again, one of those situations that I think kind of demonstrates the difficulty that non-human people might have in being able to connect with people, because are we just projecting our own, inner bias and or just fear for our lives, or are we picking up on something that they're
cave
putting
and
down?
Dagobah. It's a cave and Dagobah. That's what I always call it.
And so that, moving into the ayahuasca experience. So Tillie and I had completely opposite experiences, and I had the experience that I expected to have. I went in there going, man, I've got some demons and it's going to be real hard. So, and that's exactly what it was. I feel like I had the worst time of anybody at that retreat that weekend. And Tillie was like, oh man, it was so nice. I got spoken to by these lovely beings and all these beautiful sights. And
that's
I'm
probably
over there.
how honestly, Artemaeus, I tell you, if I went to one of these things with my wife, that's probably exactly how it'd go for me and her.
Yeah,
I'd be like you. Yeah. I'd be like you. It'd be anxiety-filled nightmare, and my wife would have some spiritual great experience. And it's exactly how it would go.
That further to the point that again, it is what you make of it. These entities that I think that when you go under the influence of any psychedelic, LSD, DMT, psilocybin, any of those, right? That it takes the governor off your brain, and you're actually able to see what's around you interdimensionally, and those beings then at that point have the ability to interact with you, and they will interact with you on the level that you are. As Tillie said, I didn't get a whole lot of interaction. I think maybe they took pity on me because I created my own hell in all of that.
Exactly.
I didn't need any help. But sitting there literally convulsing in the corner. But
hey, dude, the last time I was with my wife, and it was mushrooms, and I literally was curled up on the floor. This is many years ago. Yeah, we've been married 22 years. I was curled up on the floor, going, "Why did I do this?" She was fine, but never again. I haven't touched anything like that ever since. But I'm interested in the whole ayahuasca thing. I mean, one of my favorite movies is Altered States. I mean, come on. But I as a parent now, I just can't do those kind of things. I just won't do it. Maybe my bucket list retirement, my kids are all grown up, I'll have some ayahuasca journey as an old man. It ain't happening right now, but it is, I do think it's something, because it people have these experiences with it that, I mean, I have my Christian friends that be like, you're letting in the demons, but for some people it lets those filters down. Have you guys seen, it's based off of a book, which I haven't read, but I saw the series with Nicole Kidman, 9 Perfect Strangers.
I've never heard of that.
And they got their second season coming out, but it's all about this retreat where they're microdosing the people, And she does it without telling them at first, which I think is, a bit unethical.
Oh no.
But then she does, they find it out or whatever, I think. And but it's like you're asking yourself, are they talking to the dead? Like, they allude to that as an idea in the show, which I kind of loved. But or is it just all a hallucination? And then but it's like, there's a lot of stuff going on with these people in this, I guess, the novel and the show. They've said this has helped cure depression, doing microdosing and these kind of things too, these experiences. So I can't just discount it. I wouldn't do it, but I definitely don't discount it for other people. I just think people make sure I think for anybody who does it, try to find somebody with some guidance in it. Really don't just do it on your own. You're going to end up like me on a bathroom floor with your wife rubbing your back as you're going, why did I do this? Don't be me.
Yeah, no heroic dosing. And further to that point, though, on the microdosing, might definitely be a safer experience than just dropping a nuclear bomb on your psyche, like I did.
Right, like ayahuasca.
Yeah, it was definitely a heavy-handed approach that did not need that heavy hand. Now that I know what I know, but there's a popular, I think he's a psychologist and psychiatrist on YouTube. His name's Dr. Kanoja. His channel on YouTube is Healthy Gamer GG. It's a big channel. And he did an episode, it was a couple months ago at least now, talking about how psychedelics essentially put your brain back in edit mode and allow you to circumvent the troubles that the ego causes you. That the more ego that you have that's not being managed by yourself, the higher your incidence of mental illness and trouble,
addiction, alcoholism, domestic violence, all of that.
Yeah. So that the microdosing little bits at a time, and especially again with the guidance of a therapist that can help you go through any experiences that you're having, and
I don't know if you'd want Nicole Kidman. She's still very hot. I don't know if you want the crazy lady character she plays in that show guiding you, but but it does seem to have like this effect where it helps people, and I can't disagree with that. To each their own.
It can.
And
it can.
I think it could. Yeah. I just, for me, I'm like, I'm too old for that crap. I'm too old for that crap. I don't want to even do it. But you know what? For me, like the whole like separation ego, one of the things I always wish people could have the experience, and I've had the past life regression done, but it really didn't get it totally much from that. But what I had was just, I guess, gifts. I had two different dreams very close to each other of past lives, and I felt like they were definitely gifts because they showed me like being a totally different person, but I'm still me. You know what I'm saying? So it shows me like this facade or this ego is just a creation, that there's something higher than that. Yeah. Because I can be totally something else. And I wish for other people to experience that. Like have that experience, to have that kind of like to step back from yourself and to see that there's more than the likes and dislikes that you are and what you think you are, the character, the memories that you think build you. Like my friend that used to, he was a Christian and he didn't believe in past lives. And he's like, well, if I don't remember anything, what's the point? Why I'm just not there. There's no point to me. Then I go, if I hit you over the head and you had the classic Hollywood case of amnesia, would it still be you? You don't have your memories, right? You don't remember who you are. Are you still you? Yeah. It's just, that's what this, it kind of got to him a little bit when I said that, but, I wish people could have that experience to realize something, that they're more than just the character.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And to the point about the ayahuasca mushrooms, everything is on an individual basis, but I always recommend that people do as much healing as they can on their own, put genuine, humble effort into it, going to therapy with a well-qualified, experienced, gentle therapist who is also honest and accurate, I might add. What a balance to strike. But do your best with that. Do your best with your daily shadow work.
You have to have somebody you trust.
exactly.
That's a big factor in it.
Right. Do everything that you can and then try other avenues like the ayahuasca and the mushrooms. And so when I went into my ayahuasca experience, part of what I was told by who I believe to be Mother Ayahuasca is that the lower the ego content someone has when taking mushrooms or ayahuasca, anything like that, the better the experience that they're going to have, because everything is stable in here unless outside chaos is introduced. Whereas it is the opposite for people with moderate and higher amounts of ego content and emotional content. There is internal chaos until stability outside is introduced. And that's why parenting, for example, is so important with human children. And so it was explained to me that that's why Artemaeus was having such a difficult time with his trip. Meanwhile, I was meeting people who presented as Indian gods and goddesses, and I was being toured around the different dimensions, and I got to meet the jesters, and they didn't hurt me, they didn't scare me, anything like that. And I met a dragon. It was just one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had. And I got to dance with Mother Ayahuasca, and she taught me to dance, and that was the experience that got the retreat to say, hey, we want you as our next shaman. So I was in training for that for a while as well, purely because of how my trip went. And
I'm sorry, I laugh. I keep thinking about Artemaeus.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm just like, yeah, that guy over there, ooh, he's having a really rough
He's
time.
having a bad trip. You took
That's
too
the
much,
story they're gonna
man.
tell.
Too much.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the story they're going to tell and laugh about for years, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The next
While
morning,
they're like, you become a shaman. You had a good trip.
You over there, maybe come back in like 30 years when you have a handle on things.
right, and the next morning I got up and I got dressed and I looked all pretty, and I was carrying a pretty parasol and a matching dress and everything.
Meanwhile, I'm still wearing
smiling, happy and fresh.
I'm still wearing the clothes from the night before, soaked in sweat, and after having vomited my guts out all night long, I'm pale.
that'd be
My
me.
pallor is just deathly, and I'm literally walking around. I might as well have had a cane because I'm walking around like hunched over, like, oh my god, it's so miserable. But anyway,
But the staff walked up to us and she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you guys are up. Can I please take your picture? And so I posed, and I had my beautiful umbrella, and I was hugging on to Artemaeus, and I looked happy and glowing in the picture, and he just looked like fresh hell warmed over.
Like death warmed over.
like a welcome.
Yeah.
But anyway, enough about me. So
totally different experiences, and I have to eat meat. So part of my porphyria, I have to eat a lot of rare red meat. And so I could not follow the diet that is prescribed to you when you go to have these. And
I know.
my ayahuasca preparation started months beforehand. I was essentially just in one-way prayer. I wasn't getting any answers back or anything like that. I was praying and saying, I'm so sorry, I can't follow the diet that is prescribed here because I have these, genetic differences and these medical conditions.
Yeah.
And even with that, though, in my experience, Mother Ayahuasca said, it's okay. It's different for everyone, and we treat people differently based on ego content and genetics and attitude. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. So you could have eaten whatever you wanted leading up to this, and you'd still have an incredible welcome from us.
So all of the constraints basically that were put into place from the humans who were running this retreat saying, you must be this way. They were trying to institute a very vegan diet, essentially. And I understand, most
raw vegan.
People talk about, vegans and the cult of vegan. And
There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong. You want to be a vegan? That's great.
Right.
Don't be mad that I'm not.
Yeah, right.
I'm
exactly.
I'm a hamburger connoisseur, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. I like to I like to test a restaurant by the quality. There's so many other things on the menu you could like. But how's your hamburger?
Exactly.
That's the key right there.
I agree.
I can't give that up. My car reviews might tell me to, but
right. Well, maybe not. Who knows? Again, that's all bio-individuality. But yeah, so just to the point that the humans running this retreat had made it seem like there were very strict set of rules that you needed to follow in order for you to have the best optimal time possible. And let me tell you, because I hate vomiting, and they were like, you're probably gonna vomit, but you can have an easier time if you follow all of the dieta. And so I did. I went full bore, hardcore, like perfectionist. I was like, man, this is gonna be as good as I can possibly make it, And so I instituted all of these things, and she did not. And again,
and see how that went.
Yeah.
You vegans lied!
Yeah.
That'd have been me. Girl, you vegans lied! Somebody asked in the chat room, is it good for PTSD? I've heard it is. Definitely.
It all depends
but
on
with
the
a therapist.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you can't just work that alone. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
don't go work out PTSD on your own with some ayahuasca. Trust me, you need help. You need to get a therapist.
Something else too, I'd like to put forth in my years of clinical study, because I was going to be a psychologist at one point. I had found many years ago that the ego was the cause of so much mental illness in the human population. No one believed me until recently. And in fact, I was mocked and nearly run out of the profession. But I assert that problems like alcoholism, drug addiction, domestic violence, and PTSD, or even a lot of the time too, CPTSD, all of those are stemming from injured ego. And they almost exclusively occur in people that have moderate to high ego and moderate to high emotional content, plus some type of trauma and or a personality disorder, undiagnosed personality disorder. So if I were to talk about ayahuasca treating PTSD, I would never say, yes, it's going to treat the PTSD. What I would say is, please go seek therapy for your past trauma and get evaluated possibly for untreated, undiagnosed personality disorders, any and everything like that first. Get as much care for that as you can, and then come back to the idea of ayahuasca.
But in America, we want quick pills to solve our problems. That's the trend.
Right.
That's the thing.
Right.
That's why we have a whole huge pharmaceutical company out there. Making billions of dollars off of that idea. I can just take a pill. Okay, that'll make the anxiety and all the emotional problems go away, right? Bad memories. No.
Right.
Yeah,
and two,
you
something
need
else I
therapy
saw.
too.
Yes. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I have trouble sometimes with you.
Sorry. No, you're fine.
In my ayahuasca training too, and then in my own ayahuasca experience, these were mirrored back to each other. So Mother Ayahuasca told me that she and all of the people who live there in that dimension are neither so-called quote-unquote good or so-called quote-unquote evil. They just are. They're fulfilling roles and contracts, and they're
Yeah, I found the contract thing on your near-death experience. I forgot. I kind of wanted to ask you a little bit about that, but we got to go to commercial break, and I would like to get back to that, because that was one thing too you had mentioned during the near-death experience, was about your contract. I'd like to ask you a little more about that too, because I found that really interesting. But we do have to go to our last commercial break. We got about a half hour left of the show, guys. The phone lines will be back open when we come back from this commercial break. If you want to call in and join this conversation, have you had a similar experience? Have you had a near-death experience similar to Tillie's here, or an ayahuasca trip bad like Artemaeus's, or incredible like Tillie's? Talk. Join the conversation. Join the experiences. We learn from each other when we come back from the short commercial break.
Intercepted the transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
In space. No one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Heat 'em up.
Do, re,
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419. Or by Skype caller ID 00JBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Artemaeus and Tillie Treadwell. Artemaeus we had on, like I said, a couple months ago, and Tillie is new to the show. She is a medium, psychic with paranormal experiencers, both of them. We're talking about a lot of their experiences, and I am going to open up the phone lines in a minute, but I do want to get to something in the chat room. I do see somebody making a point about something. I want Tillie to be able to address it because I don't think they're understanding what she's saying. We'll get to that in a second, but I will open up the phone lines if you want to join this conversation. We got about less than 30 minutes left in the show if you want to join us, but let's go ahead and get back to our guests. All right, we're back. All right, I'll open up the phone lines in a minute, but I want to get to this one, Tillie, because I had somebody put this in here, and I don't think they're trying to be mean or anything like that, but they just I want you to clarify what you were saying, because I think I understand you. This person, what they're saying is, I don't know, it sounded like to me, victim blaming people with PTSD. I don't know if you saw that. It makes me really uncomfortable. That could be very dangerous rhetoric. We don't want, we're not saying, you're not saying that. You're not trying to blame people that have PTSD.
Right, and see, like, this is the problem. This is why I don't speak very much anymore, because people aren't listening to what I'm saying literally. And this is part of the problem that I keep having in trying to work with people. So I was not at all blaming anyone.
I know you're not.
I didn't say that even remotely close. And so this is the type of thing that has driven me back into the shadows.
I think what you get here is people that you hear what you're saying, but you're getting to this like deep thoughts by Jack Andy. It's deep stuff, and when you go beyond, you get into this deep stuff. It can seem like that too, and I say that's a hard thing to understand too when you get into topics like reincarnation too, and karma. They can, some people have accused that as in a sense victim blaming, in a sense for your life being crap. You chose it. Right? That's the hardest one for people to buy into with reincarnation, that you chose this life and these experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the ultimate form of victim blaming too, in a sense? I mean, these are deep thoughts. These are deep things. It's hard for people to catch up to sometimes.
Sure, but I didn't say that, and I don't think that. I'm simply saying, my friends, that different people are born with different amounts of ego, and that comes with different benefits and different challenges. And before jumping to something that may or may not be a quick fix, I simply always advocate for taking personal responsibility and clearing up as much trauma and or other types of baggage that one may or may not have first. And if someone does hold the mentality of like just being a constant victim, then unfortunately that person is keeping him or herself stuck, and that is an ego.
Well, Tillie, you're battling a civilization that is cherishing victimhood.
Is it really a civilization then?
Yeah, but you see what I'm saying. But you're dealing with a psychology of that now. I see it every day. We're rewarding to be this victimhood mentality, and I get it. I understand what you're saying and what you're kind of battling against. But I'm also saying that people too, when we get into these deep philosophical kind of conversations, or you get into the spiritual, that for some people, everybody's in a different point in their journey. That's how I always look at it. Mm-hmm. We're all on the same road. We're all at a different point. Nobody's above or below anybody. We're all at a different point. Same road, same journey. Doesn't matter what part of the journey you're on.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Further to the point, as you were saying, that when people think victim, usually that automatically triggers certain perceptions and views of themselves, which excuse themselves from any sort of action or responsibility to rectify that, and they kind of stay in this perpetual state.
That's the problem.
Right. So let's say somebody who gets PTSD from some traumatic event. I'm not saying at all, and Tillie's not saying at all, that they somehow called that event to them and that they deserved whatever happened because they were, asking for it, essentially.
Right.
But what we are saying is that you now have PTSD. And there are things that can be done about it, but you have to take responsibility to fix it. Even though whatever happened to you may not have been, quote unquote, your fault, that entire argument is beside the point. The point is now, what do you do with what you have? You have PTSD and you have control over that. Let's, take responsibility.
That goes for anybody with any psychological problem. I mean, we all have our issues. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And either you're going to own it and work on it, or it's just going to be what you fall back onto.
Right. It's an
just
excuse
not to look
for
at
whatever,
do you want to change it or do you not? And I understand it's not there's no quick. That's the thing. What we all understand here in this group tonight is there's no quick fixes.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And then, knowing, essentially understanding your shortcomings. Maybe it's not something that you can ever fix. I'm not saying PTSD. Maybe it's something completely different, and you don't ever come up with.
I have friends with PTSD, man. It's just like dealing.
I
with,
had PTSD from my
grief.
ayahuasca experience. I get it.
Right. Well, it's just like with grief. It's not like something that or that it's just gone one day. But are you owning it and working on it, or are you falling upon it as a crutch to blame any problems? Right. That goes for any problems, and that's I think that's what you guys were trying to get at. I understood that, but that's the thing. It's amount of people just hearing a conversation they're just getting into. We're really into the conversation, So that just happens. So it's just lost in translation. And I know no hate against the person making the comment. I wanted to make sure that it was cleared up for you, and thank you for your comment on there, because I want to make sure it's clear to you guys. I didn't want to. I'm not mad at you or them for asking the question.
I would like to say one more thing on that note. So back in the day, I was training to be a trauma psychologist, and I quit like 2 years and some months into my program because of the patterns that I kept seeing from these victims of severe abuse. So I've come to discover, this is just my understanding, there are, let's just say, narcissists, there are victims, and then there are narcissistic victims. And this is a hard pill maybe for some people to swallow, but a lot of people, a lot of victims do grow up to be heavily narcissistic. And this is why I quit. I was attacked physically. People would misquote me constantly. It caused problems at the clinic. And thankfully, the other clinicians knew what they were, looking at, and everything was recorded. But it wears on me over time that I'm saying things in a literal way, but someone else will say, oh my gosh, she just victim blamed. She did this, attack her, or, whatever the case may be. And this was a great example of
You're
that.
fighting
So
people's demons. You're fighting people's inner demons, be it real or not. That's what you're doing. And they fight back. They bite back.
I'm tired.
But we really appreciate the comment, because it's something that comes up a lot when we talk about this sort of thing, and consistently clearing up the message, holding space for somebody who feels uncomfortable will be brave enough to say something like that without attacking, because I don't think that person was attacking. I think they were raising what they saw as a legitimate concern, and we appreciate the opportunity to, shed some light on.
The phone lines are open, guys, if you do want to call in and join the conversation. But I wanted to make sure we addressed it, because they weren't trying to attack you. They were just, oh, I want to make sure I understood what she's saying. I get that. Because these are deep thoughts. And that's why you have to have the conversations. I can't ask you just like pre-screen questions. I never do that on this show. I have, this is my notes. It's like literally your name's at the top, and next week, no show. I had no pre-arranged questions. You know what I'm saying? Because we have to have a conversation, and things can get lost in translation, and I get that. So.
Oh my God! It reminds me of that scene from My Cousin Vinny. Have you seen that movie?
Not in a long time.
Oh man! So he comes prepared as a lawyer with a briefcase that literally has an empty legal pad in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's me. I'm like Joe Pesci, right? Is that who it was? Joe Pesci. Yeah, that's all I got. I don't have any pre-planned. I'll get you guys. See, you guys don't have any publicists. I'll have publicists. They'll send me like all these questions. I'm like, and I get an idea, but then when I get to the notepad, I never write them down hardly.
No, man. We like to go with the flow. Whatever people need, that's the best thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but, speaking of the paranormal again, this is a great time, I think, to talk about something that I noticed within the paranormal realm. So when I was working with the Catholic Church,
I wanted to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially as an exorcist, a lot of the times we would go in, it was me and a handful of other people on the team, we'd go in and the families would swear that they have a demon. And a lot of the time, this wasn't really the case. Sometimes it would be something like an elemental, or in a few cases, it was actually the recently deceased family member stuck there and having unresolved trauma that he or she couldn't move on from, psychologically. But then with a lot of these darker domestic cases, the non-human person would talk to me and say, I'm just reflecting back to that person what they've already brought to the table. I was here originally just as an accidental poltergeist, and then they started to label me as a demon, and now I pretend to be a demon because it feeds me. And so I personally though, I don't like to get
you're really into the theory I've had on this for a long time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is going to be excellent then. I think you might understand what I'm getting at. So non-human people tend to highly oppose or straight up mirror human or egoic psychology for any number of purposes. But when I would come into these families and say, okay, please tell me what happened, they'll say, well, the picture frame, it fell off of the mantle, or something happened where something else was moved, and I just go, it's a demon. They'd be freaking out and whatnot. I'm like, okay, what else has happened to convince you that this is a demon, biblical or otherwise? And it was, nothing. But then I started to talk about it, or I started to think about it being a demon, and then all of a sudden this started happening, and this started happening. And then I would go and I would talk to the non-human person, and they're like, yeah, absolutely. They labeled me as a demon. I'm here to eat because they live, really abusive, high emotion lives, high ego lives. Yeah. And so not only did their lifestyle invite me, but they labeled me. And so now I have an active role to fill. Makes all the sense in the world to me. And so there were a handful of families that once they psychologically got their stuff together, there were very few people that took my advice. But once they did, the activity went away, and that non-human person had to go find another person to eat off of. But most families and most people wouldn't take my advice at all, and so everything just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And the non-human people, the so-called demons, would say, well, we're not leaving, or I'm not leaving unless this person completely, or this family completely changes their vibration and their attitude. But a lot of the time,
why leave the feast?
Exactly. And they're like, I have a right to be here. Yeah. And I agreed with that. And that was highly controversial. And that was part of the reason why I left the Catholic Church. But if people could slow down a minute to ask questions genuinely, curiously, and just look at what is literally being said or what literally has happened, and not assign emotion or label to it, that's how you enter the gateway of harmony with lots of different types of people of all different ego contents and emotional contents, and in relationships. Yes.
Marriage counselors will tell you.
No, so the theory I've always had on this in the paranormal, and it's kind of related to the cave in Dagobah still too, but is when my mom would tell me a story about the Bell Witch in Tennessee.
Yes.
And I became fascinated with that story as a kid. And you know how that story started, right? It was a farmer and son were in the field, on the farm, and they saw a beast in the field. Not quite could describe what it was, right? But it was a beast. That's the main description. And then all these other series of paranormal events happens, mainly centered around the father and daughter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the theme grew a personality. I mean, there's whole legends and mythology and folklore between, the Bell Witch but the scene, as a description, grew a personality. And first they thought it was the what's her name, the neighbor lady. They thought was the witch, right? But then it took on a life of its own, right? As more people came and saw and believed and heard the voices and saw the phenomenon, it got stronger and stronger and stronger, right? Because they're feeding this thing. In Tibet, they have what they call a topa, a thought form, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it can be created by psychic energy thoughts, your thoughts and consciousness. And the more people come in believing in it, the more it's created and fed upon. I had parapsychologist Barry Taff on the show years ago, and he did the entity case. More recently, people would have seen him in the Zach Bagans Demon House documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he would like me to mention that. Sorry, Barry. But entity case is what he's most famous for. And there's another one he took on. A lot of the cases he had were about psychokinetic activity. And he developed a whole theory about, takes two elements, the person and the location. I've always thought that it's one more element, though. After my shadow person experience, I've always described it as a parasite that fed off my emotions, my negative, very negative, worst emotions, fear, hate, depression, the worst. That there is this other third element, an entity, a parasite. But it reflects you, your expectations. And it can form into whatever. And there's been thought experiments where people have done that, where they did Ouija board sessions with a made-up entity. They made them up.
Philip.
Right. Exactly. And then it took on a life of its own, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically been my theory. And the reason that I can correlate that with the way the Bell Witch started, if you look at the Skinwalker Ranch, it started with a father and son seeing a beast attacking one of their cattle in a pen.
Right.
What are these things but reacting to our primal instincts? So when we first encounter this thing, when it first manifests, maybe it goes to a primal relationship with us. It wants to feed off our fear. So its first reaction is to appear as something threatening in the woods, or a beast. Because in our primal, earliest human state, that was what we had to fear, was a beast. Right? And if this thing like its biggest smorgasbord is fear, what would it want to appear as? Our most primal fear.
That makes sense to me, and I do largely support that, because it seems like these non-human people are working from the outside in. They start off wild a lot of the times, and then they move into the domestic sphere. And I always try to warn people with moderate to high ego and emotional content to be extremely respectful and humble when you step outside anywhere near the woods, a forest, the ocean, the lake, anything like that, because you don't know who's watching. And if you don't have your internal world together, non-human people, in my experience, can read that usually pretty easily. Now,
they'll dissect you.
Yeah, they will. And I've met a lot of non-human people who they want to have grace for people who have higher ego content and emotional content, but trying to approach humankind is extremely dangerous and stressful. So a lot of them won't even try. But then there are other ones who will absolutely just use that to feed off of. And everyone's got to eat. So I don't label it as, so-called good or evil. It's just everyone's got to eat. But, oh goodness, I'm so sorry. We've been talking a while and I lost my train of thought. You had such great points. I essentially agree with what you said.
Well, you're, like I said, everything you were saying is getting right at a theory I've had and I've talked about on the show for years about how these things are parasitic. And yes. I describe it also, another great example I saw in fiction. I'm a big movie fan, and book fan, is Harry Potter, which I read all the books, and saw the movies.
Yeah.
You remember the Irish ghost, the Bogart?
The Banshee? Oh.
No, Bogart.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it's in the closet, and all the kids go up and take a turn, and they open up, and it becomes their fear. That's what I've described. I think J.K. Rowling was kind of getting at that in a sense, and that experience of how these things can be. that they react to your fear.
Yes,
Become
and
your fear.
that was something that, thank you for reminding me. From what I've been told about at least certain types of interdimensional non-human psychology, they have a core set of morals and a very small core of, you could say, personality, but it's not even ego. It doesn't even reach the height of ego. It's just like a little, you could say, paint drop on a blank white canvas. So you've got the morals and you've got the tiny spark of personality, and then branching out from that, it's like a kaleidoscope. And they develop different egos and different presentations as they move through time and space. And so this is why, in my understanding, we have lots of different gods, allegedly, and goddesses throughout all of this society's history. But it's like the same gods and goddesses stories being retold over and over and over. So like Jesus and Mithra and things like that. It's really
Ishtar
the same person or the same small cast of characters who are essentially masquerading and developing alongside humankind.
Feeding off our consciousness, our collective consciousness and belief.
Yes, and developing their own personalities and egos over time, and they switch between them essentially just about flawlessly.
I think that's what Supernatural, the TV show, was getting at. You know, you ever watch that show? They always had all those gods. They had God. They had Chuck. He was God. But they also had all the other gods, right? You know, he's God, but all the other, but they all fed off, like they were empowered by the human collective consciousness and belief in them. In some sense, it was always hinted at. You know, like they fed off of that awareness or worship or whatever.
Yes, yeah, and there are a lot of stories that I think kind of softly disclose this. What was a good one? American Gods. I'm a big fan of that show because it explains almost perfectly what I understand and have experienced to be true, except it puts it in a format where it's easily understood and related to by people with much higher ego content. So the behavior of the characters isn't, in my experience,
what is American
correct.
Gods? I'm trying to remember.
It's by Neil Gaiman. It was originally, I believe, a book, but it became
Neil Gaiman. Yeah.
a
TV
show. Oh
Sandman, and we really loved. They did the Dead Boy Detectives recently, and we really loved that show, and they canceled it, bastards.
Oh man. Yeah, but I would encourage people to maybe consider watching American Gods because you can see how they move throughout time, creating different presentations and different egos to match the era.
Think of all the bloodshed that's been done in the name of any gods out there.
Yeah,
that's powerful stuff, you know.
Yeah, it is. Blood, I think, is power, and I never recommend anyone get involved in any relationship, whether it's human or non-human, that involves any kind of blood pact. So that also includes religions. That includes religions. I don't even recommend religions because if you read the original Bible and everything, it's nothing but a bloodbath. You don't know who you're worshiping, and I don't support worship anyways.
That's the Old Testament stuff. That if you get into the early Hebrews, I mean, they weren't monotheistic.
Yeah, that's
not
true.
till later, and they had multiple gods. They believed in Yahweh was the god of the storm god of the desert. You know, he's just one of them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh!
And they sacrificed. They sacrificed. You know, like you trace all that back. It goes back to the same kind of stuff the Mesopotamians were talking about with Anunnaki. Yeah. You know, when it comes to sacrificing goats, the Anunnaki like the taste of. I like gyros too. Anunnaki. I like some lamb meat. I get why they liked it. They knew what's up. You know, they like that good gyro meat. But that's the thing. That's why they were sacrificing, because obviously whatever it was back then, like meat, I don't call that a god of any kind I would believe in. I believe that's an alien.
Yeah,
or
I think
extra interdimensional creature of some kind that likes gyro meat.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so I don't support worship or religion or anything of that nature. And even like some people encountering me, they'll come up to me on the street. Some people will think immediately that I must be a demon or something, or some people think that immediately that I am an angel. And some people will walk up and either attack me physically, but some others will give me money. Some others will give me physical items. And I will say, I'm just a person. I'm just here. You know, I appreciate your love or whatever the case may be. But please, you know, I would like to encourage you to do your best on your own walk.
I am but a servant. Do not worship me.
Yeah. So, but I
want to get to this guy, Rico. I apologize. I've been listening. I mean this with all due respect, and I believe you that you do. But as a demonologist, certified exorcist for almost 4 years, I can argue demons are extremely real and dangerous. Agree with you.
I agree.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with you on that at all. We're not saying that.
Wow.
If you hear my shadow person experience, call it a demon, call it whatever it is. I'm trying to understand that experience. It's dangerous, extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're not discounting that. We might argue the morality a little bit for sure, but
it's a matter of perception. If you look at it from your religious faith and point of view, it's a demonic possession. We are looking at it from a different. I don't belong to Christianity or any religion. So if my view comes off, I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody. I'm just trying to understand the experience people are having and what they're doing and what are the consequences. And I do agree. It is dangerous. It is very dangerous. You got to be very much aware of what you're doing. If you get yourself into this, go into the cave in Dagobah. What we're trying to say is there is real danger there. You can call it a demon, call it tomato. You bring the lightsaber, prepare for a fight.
Yes. Then, if you meet it with love, though, a lot of the time that's either going to lessen the effect or it's going to completely drive out that.
For a Christian, I think meeting it with love is their relationship with God.
I agree with you.
That's their love, and I think it's a powerful thing, just as much as your faith in love.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a human condition, the need for some sort of, I hesitate to call it religion, but spirituality, you can call it. It just seems to be something that, in general. I always
love the phrase in Buddhism, there's many doors of the Dharma. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody has their way. Everybody's on their different path in their journey. You believe what you believe in, and I respect that. You know, you believe what you believe, and I respect that. We all have our different perspectives, and how the hell do I know any of my perspectives are right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's it. If we create what it is, if we, from our consciousness, if we are creating things, then whatever it is that we believe is real.
Mm-hmm.
So there are multiple realities then.
Well, that's why I have an open doorway to people to talk about these experiences, because if we're not going to be honest and talk about our experiences, how are we ever going to know? How are we going to ever figure any of this out?
I agree.
Yep. And I was going to say there was a comment that flashed up there asking to further illuminate the ego, but I don't know how much time you may have for that. Or
we are actually, as I realize, as you said that, I look at it's at the end of the show.
Yeah.
We got to have, you know what this means, though, is I got to have you two back on. I got to have you guys back on.
There
for
will
sure.
be more. Yes.
Because I honestly, thank you again, Artemaeus, for reaching out to me all those months ago.
Yeah.
To have you on the show. And trusting your wife to come on the show with me.
I will share her as much as I possibly can. That's safe for her and everybody else involved.
Yeah, I know. But you guys are awesome. I really, really, really appreciate you being on the show tonight, and truly love this conversation. Like, totally in that wavelength. And I want to do this again. We got to set it up sometime in the future, guys.
Will do.
All right, guys. But that is the end of the show. I got to get my butt to bed. I'm sure my wife's going to have me up in the morning doing stuff because tomorrow's not my birthday. Tomorrow's get the lawn done, get this done, and then Tuesday I'll get the day off, right? My birthday.
And Father's Day coming up, too.
Yeah, I got Father's Day. Speaking of the remind me, thank you, Artemaeus. Next Sunday is Father's Day. I am going to spend it with my sons doing boy stuff. whatever that might be, probably video games or poker or whatever. But that's what I want to do for Father's Day. I love spending time with you guys. I do spend some holidays with you guys. But Father's Day, it's all about spending with my boys and my wife, too. And just relaxing with them. So no show next Sunday, but we'll be back the following week. I don't remember who the guest is. I think we got somebody. But we'll get these two, Artemaeus and Tillie Treadwell. We'll get you guys back on the future. Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody watching. Great questions tonight, guys. I think everybody, all the questions tonight, I think were totally respectful and fine. I think we had really good, hard, honest questions. This is conversations. This is why I'm doing this. I want to have these conversations. We got to talk about this stuff and have open conversations with all kinds of different perspectives. That's how we learn. All right, guys. Have a great night. See you in a couple Sundays.